Sugar in coats, confronting with the truth, you'll say it's all a hoax. He promised to release all the Epstein files that caused all the maggot base to react with smiles. But how long has he put it off? It sure has been a while, and now he's calling this a hoax, protecting pedophiles. A hoax, a hoax. He says it's all a hoax. When at a press conference or with misspelled keystrokes, he'll keep on gaslighting up until he crooks. Confronted with the truth, he'll say it's all a hoax. patriotism when Donald's to blame. Had Biden done it, back on the flip. Had Biden done it, full numbers and slip. Had Biden done it, they'd shout no way. But Trump did it, so it must be okay.
A self-proclaimed king, a groper in chief, stealing our country, a crooked orange thief. For patriots who are poorly educated, wearing red hats and also unvaccinated, liberal Dan will see us through. It's the best show that you're not listening to. So when you hear the call, animals unite, liberal Dan radio, talk from the left, that's right. A failing media that's barely treading water, they're too inept to fight this new world order. Corporate pigs are at the trough, hear the squeals. The swine won't bite the hands that feeds them meals. But liberal Dan will see us flow. It's the best show that you're not listening to. So when you hear the call, animals unite, liberal Dan radio, talk comes to left, that's right. A leftist voice on air, exposing MAGA treason, breaking through their lies with facts, logic, and reason, unmasking hypocrisy. The truth will be our guide. Call out their lies, justice is on our side. 'Cause liberal Dan will see us through. It's the best show that you're not listening to. So when you hear the call, animals unite, liberal Dan radio, talk from the left, that's right. Liberal Dan radio, talk from the left, that's right.
Welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you live from New Orleans, Louisiana. We may open up the phone lines later, maybe, depending on how long the interview with Ken goes. He will obviously have the phone lines whilst he's on the air. So he should be coming on in about 10 minutes or so. We'll be doing a couple of housekeeping things, I guess, before he does call in. Obviously, if you want to support the show, Venmo Liberal Dan on Venmo at Liberal Dan, or you can buy me a coffee. Go to buymeacoffee.com/LiberalDanRadio, or click the buy me a cider button over on liberaldan.com. You can support the show as always for free by liking, sharing, subscribing, helping the algorithm out, because as we all know, Al Gore needs more rhythm. And you can also support the show. I've pinned the link again up in each of the chat threads. You can buy John Fugelsang's book. He was a guest on the show. It was a great show. It was a great interview. It's a great book. And if you haven't bought it yet, buying that supports him and also supports the show because you're using my affiliate link. So, and there you go. So we're just being open and transparent about that. It helps both of us. So there you go. You could also subscribe over on Twitch. If you gift a subscription or you get a new subscription on Twitch, .liberaldanradio.com, you can get 3 months of Duolingo for free as part of their new, I think that ends today or tomorrow. So if you want to get 3 months of Duolingo, go ahead and gift a subscription or get one for yourself if you've not gotten one yet over there on Twitch. Otherwise, you can also gift memberships here on YouTube or buy one for yourself as well, or do super chats, super stickers, etc. All sorts of fun ways to support the show. But again, of course, the most important one, liking, commenting on videos, interact with the people, even if you don't want to interact with them because they're conservative trolls. Sometimes feeding the trolls a little bit can be a good thing because it helps the algorithm. And again, algorithm needs more rhythm. So
it is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. Okay, in the chats, we got our Willoughby and Aaron over in Twitch land. We got Jeff from just north of Uranus. We got one half of the Mod Squad, Aaron. We got Steve from across the pond.
If it's no Scottish, it's crap.
We've got CR. We've got Suzanne and Roxanne in the house. Anybody else that I've missed? If I've missed you already, apologize. Maybe you might not have commented yet, but it is what it is. Oh, that's Trump's.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. So, anyway, yes, let's go ahead and we are going to shut this down. Just the audio. We won't play any audio for a second, just in case Ken decides to call in a few minutes early. But before that happens, I do want to make sure to talk about a couple of things from the headlines today. Donald Trump has not only bombed and destroyed, blown up another ship without providing any evidence that the ship was, harmful in any way, that it actually had drugs on it. But this is like the, 4th or 5th time that Donald Trump has, and his Department of War has went ahead and bombed a ship, a boat, a vessel into oblivion, and I think it's been reported that at least one of them was incorrect. Now, what business do we have? I mean, I thought that we were not supposed to be the world police under conservatism. Conservatism always wants to say, we shouldn't be the world police. We shouldn't be the world police. But now we're bombing people in international water. What? Make it make sense. And of course now Donald Trump has confirmed that he is authorizing CIA covert operations in Venezuela as well. So much for, Mr. Peacemaker. I'm the peacemaker. You don't become a peacemaker by having covert operations in other people's countries. I'm sure Venezuela loves it, right? I'm sure he'll say that they love it, but why would we believe him? So to me, if you really wanted to blow up a ship, you would wait for it to come to U.S. waters, and then you would say, hey, we are going to warn you that if you enter U.S. waters, you will be boarded and or fired upon if you resist. And then if they resist, if they fire back, then yeah, you're going to be able to, whatever. You're going to be able to take them out, and no one could then complain because they fired at you first. Even if they made an aggressive gesture towards you. But I mean, if we have, more powerful Navy than these little dinghies or whatever that they're using to bring in, drugs allegedly to our soil, then, we should be able to overpower it with ease without having to use drones. And of course, they're going to say, oh, well, we don't want to put our troops at risk. Our troops are not going to be at risk. And we should be doing the right thing in making sure that the people who we bomb are the correct people. Just like, although, I mean, him and Netanyahu are buddy-buddy, so, hey, what do you expect, right? So we've also had the Supreme Court seeming to be willing to pare back the Voting Rights Act. Section 2, when they undid, 4 and 5 of the Voting Rights Act, they said, oh, you still have Section 2. It's like Lucy and the football all over again. Because if you believe that they were going to stop at 4 and 5, guess what? You're an idiot. Because now the Supreme Court, the conservatives on the Supreme Court at least, seem to be ready to just go ahead and say, Nope. Let's overturn part 2. Let's just eliminate the Voting Rights Act altogether. And then what's going to happen? Then, Louisiana's going to cheer. All the conservatives in Louisiana are going to cheer. And if you don't have to do that, well, let's see. All right, we do have Ken on the line. We're going to wait for Ken in a second. I'll introduce him in a second. I just want to finish up the few sentences that I was going to have, and then we'll introduce Ken. We'll bring him on the show. Anyway, so, but yeah, they want to chip away at the Voting Rights Act, and they want to make sure what happens if Louisiana then goes, okay, Voting Rights Act is now null and void and non-existent because of, whatever ruling they're going to come out with months from now. Guess what? What happens? Does Louisiana then go, hey, we're going to draw all 6 Louisiana districts to make sure that there's no Democratic seats and just take away all of the voices from a third of the state? There's a simple fix to this, everybody. It's eliminating congressional districts altogether, taking away the power of the people in the legislatures to choose their own voters and elect slates of candidates as well. That would be the best way. Of course, no one's going to do that because the Democrats in the blue states are going to say, we don't want to eliminate our power to choose our voters. And the Republicans in the red states are going to say, we don't want to eliminate the ability for us to choose our voters. So we're going to be stuck with this corrupt system, and it's going to become even more corrupt because we eliminated the Voting Rights Act. And how do you get that back? I don't know. Israel is keeping the Gazan border closed while reducing aid deliveries. So Donald Trump's peace plan is going super, right? And of course, on Politico, you've had messages leaked from young Republicans, young can be as high as 40, saying very terrible things that I'm sure you've seen already, but very terrible things. And J.D. Vance is like, we shouldn't punish kids for saying things and joking around. Some of them are 40. Some of them are 30. And even when I was 18, I didn't say this crap. But, that's maybe a topic for the show for the other day, because simply speaking, we do have our guest on the line. Ken Good graduated from Hardin Simmons University in 1982 with a Bachelor of Arts Degree. He received a Master's of Education from Tarleton State University, which is part of the Texas A&M System. In 1989, he received his law degree from Texas Tech School of Law. He was a member of the Texas Tech Law Review. Mr. Good has argued cases before the Supreme Court of Texas, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, along with other courts of appeals, including the United States 5th District Court of Appeals here in New Orleans. He is the author of Goods on Bail, a practice guide created for bail industry professionals. In addition, he has written numerous articles on the subject of bail reform, including what successful bail reform looks like. Mr. Good is married and has 2 daughters. And so now I would like to take this opportunity to go ahead and welcome back to the show, Ken Good. Ken, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's been a long day, and but it's good to be back, and it's good to talk to you again.
All right, welcome to the Lion's Den, so to speak. I mean, I'm Daniel, so I mean, I don't know if I have the Lion's Den or not, but we do disagree on politics a decent bit. We've come to agreement on some issues when we've called in the past, but when I was contacted and asked if I would like to have you on, I was like, sure, yes, we'll have you on. It took a while to get it all, dealt with because of all the issues going on in my life currently, but that's not important for the topic of the show. But anyway, I hope everything's going well with you and your family, and I hope everything is going well with everything. And so basically there are 2 things that were kind of brought up in the emails back and forth scheduling the show. One of them is Donald Trump's executive order on cashless bail and trying to, I guess, convince state and municipalities to eliminate cashless bail. And then there's also the idea that, or what question as to whether or not the mass deportations are helping to reduce the crime rate, violent crime rates in this country. So I'll let you go ahead and choose, since you're my guest. Which one would you like to talk about first?
Oh, let's talk about the executive order.
Sure.
I think that's an important thing, and I think it's. It should be a common sense thing. It shouldn't take an executive order, but we're in a time period where politics is so strong on issues of criminal justice reform and bail reform that we can't even admit the truth. So it takes an executive order to kind of get to the truth.
Okay, and so part of I think the most important wording on the executive order on Cashless bail says, within 30 days of the date of this order, the Attorney General shall submit to the President, through the Assistant to the President for Homeland Security, a list of states and local jurisdictions that have, in the Attorney General's opinion, substantially eliminated cash bail as a potential condition of pretrial release from custody from crimes that pose a clear threat to public safety and order, including offenses that involve violent, sexual, or indecent acts, or burglary, looting, or vandalism. Right? And in the case, one of the things that was brought up in the cashless bail, or the ability of people to be released pretrial without having to put up any sort of cash bail, was the case of Irina Zaritska, her death on the public transportation. And she was clearly killed, murdered by somebody who a lot of people have argued as to whether or not this individual should have been walking free or not, based on what was going on, in his past. Now, to be clear, DeCarlos Brown Jr., in the crime that he was charged with, that he was let go, was simply misusing the 911 system. Which in and of itself, if you read Donald Trump's text of his executive order, would not fall under the list of things. Violent, it's not violent, it's not sexual, it's not indecent, it's not burglary, it's not looting, it's not vandalism. And if you strictly interpret that under those words, Brown still could have been let go, because the crime that he was accused of at this point was not one that met any of those characteristics. And since the murder that took place on the public transportation, the state of North Carolina has went ahead and made some changes to those laws, and I guess clarifying certain conditions as to when somebody can be released without any sort of cash bail. But I mean, I would argue that perhaps, if you're going to eliminate cash bail for non-violent crimes or crimes that aren't a threat to people's persons or property, that you should be able to do a look back at the previous record. I think we could probably agree there, right?
Well, I mean, let's don't call it look back at the previous record. Let's just call it what it is. We should look at their criminal history.
Well, that's what I mean by previous record, criminal history. If they have been convicted of crimes, I mean, I think he served 6 to 8 years in prison for was it brandishing?
He'd been arrested numerous times, but he also had served time in jail. The problem that we have, the problem that this gentleman exemplifies, what he shows in the criminal justice reform movement, is that we have created a system where we've eliminated all mental health facilities, or the majority of mental health asylums in the country, and the jails and the prisons have become the largest mental health facilities in the country. But then here we are in our criminal justice reform saying, well, this guy has a mental issue, so we're going to King's exit, get rid of the criminal case, and just release him without any further treatment. And that's what the revolving door for this guy was. He got arrested, released, arrested, released, released, and he served 5 years for one sentence, because the problem is when you get to some substantial violent offenses, then they don't let you go, and that should not be the measurement. And we're failing public safety, and we're failing these people.
Well, and when you look back at him, I mean, in this particular case, it wasn't that he wasn't told that he was just going to be let go without any sort of mental check or whatever. He was basically, there was an order that it should be done, but it just wasn't done. And perhaps doing that should be done in an expedited manner. If somebody says, okay, this person is not mentally competent, they are not to stand trial, then perhaps that should be done in an expedited manner in such a way, and make sure that, but I would say, if you look back at I would say we would look back at the criminal record and not the arrest record, because we would agree that just because you're arrested, it doesn't mean you're guilty, right?
Well, criminal history includes both convictions and non-convictions. So if we look at his criminal history, it involves both. And the best barometer of whether you're going to show up for court or whether you're a threat to public safety is your criminal history.
Right, but I mean, there are, but I would say the convictions more so than the actual arrests in and of themselves.
Well, why are we going to differentiate? I mean, there's a risk assessment tool that people have been pushing that's kind of been discredited, and that's what it did. It only looked at convictions; it didn't look at arrests, and that's an incomplete picture of your criminal history. I mean, that's not. We should not be limiting what we review. I mean, that's
let's take, for example,
why say we're going to review.
Let me put this as an example. So let's say you have somebody who's arrested for a particular crime, and it's determined, let's say, misusing the 911 system, which is what he was charged with, right? So I would say that if for some reason that after that arrest and being let go, if he was then rearrested for some other crime, then yeah, that arrest should be taken into consideration because you're now doing something else that causes the criminal justice system to have to jump back in. Now, and I would say you should be able to look at past crimes that you've been convicted of to be able to say, okay, well, this person has a clear criminal past, but I have a big issue with looking at, if you look at arrests that are not being considered for trial, I should clarify that. So if he was if somebody was arrested and then there was no trial, no conviction, and then that this justice system is done for them on that particular arrest, I don't think that arrest should be looked at because our system should be treating people as innocent until proven guilty on any particular crime. So we shouldn't be punishing people for getting arrested but not convicted on a particular act. I mean, isn't that what our nation's criminal justice system? Okay, go ahead.
Innocent until proven guilty only deals with trial. You have a presumption of innocence. When we're talking about pretrial detention or whether you're going to be released, it's all about what assurance you're going to give to the court that you're going to return or that you're not going to be a threat to public safety. So I disagree. I mean, let me turn your example on its head. Someone's been arrested 5 times for violent offenses, threatening people, but each one of them, because of the new criminal justice reforms, they've decided, well, he's got a mental condition. He wasn't on his meds, so they got him on his meds and released him and dismissed the charges. So what you're saying is we can't take any of those 5 arrests into consideration when he's arrested on a new charge because they weren't convictions. And I think they're directly relevant on public safety.
I would probably amend my argument then to say that you could take into consideration mental health history. If somebody was not convicted because of a mental health issue and trying to get them the mental health that they need versus the mental health help that they need versus that, I would probably move my position there a little bit to include being able to look backwards at that. But if it's not a mental health issue, what do you know what percentage, perhaps, I don't know off the top of my head, but what percentage of people who are arrested of a crime but not convicted of a crime happen to be the convictions are because of mental health issues, or the lack of conviction is from a mental health issue versus the lack of conviction is because of a lack of evidence? I would say in the former, sure, maybe we should look at that because that was an extenuating circumstance as to why the person wasn't convicted of a crime, but could still be viewed as somebody who's dangerous to society. Whereas on the latter, there is no evidence that the individual, actually, there was not enough evidence to convict. So at that point, the judicial system should not treat the individual as somebody who is guilty of a crime when they weren't found guilty of the crime. So why should I, if I was accused of a crime 20 years ago, and nothing was ever, and I was arrested, I wasn't, but if I was arrested and there was no, and they decided to not press charges, or they decided to drop the case because of reasons or whatever, or even if I was found not guilty in the court of law, regardless of whatever those things, any of those things. But if there's nothing talking about my mental issues, and it was just a simple fact of I was just not convicted of a crime, then why should 20 years, 10 years, 5 years down the road, should a future arrest then be able to say, oh, well, he was arrested in the past for this crime, but not convicted and no mental health issues. So then, but why should that come into play at all when it determines as to whether or not I am somebody who should be freed or not be jailed and not be forced to have to pay some sort of surety bond or some other form of guarantee that I'm going, financial guarantee that I'm going to come back?
Well, first of all, there's a whole bunch of issues here in what you're bringing up, but probably the most important one is the type of release mechanism system that's used is very important. There's a reason why, this executive order was issued. I mean, when the private sector has the lowest failure to appear rate by far, leaps and bounds above any other release mechanism, that affects backlogs, of course. So when you have a less than 10% failure to appear rate for one, a 50% or 60% failure to appear rate for other simple release mechanisms, you can see how that will affect backlogs. And so you get to the point where you're looking for relief that will just prevent the system from collapsing. And so when you're making a differentiation about, well, was he found guilty? Was there a mental health issue? Is that the reason why the case is dismissed? What if it's just dismissed because of backlogs and they're trying to prevent the system from collapse because the backlogs are growing so much? And then the last point I would make on this issue is the criminal justice system is intended for everybody to be treated differently, to be treated according to their individual circumstances. So you, if you have no criminal history and you've been arrested, you should be treated one way. But if I have a long criminal history, even if it only has one conviction, I should not be treated the same way you were treated. And so it should all be a sliding scale, and the judge using his discretion, taking into consideration your individual circumstances or my individual circumstances. But I think that it is naive to say that or to assume that we can just come up with cookie cutter little ways we're going to treat every person, and we have to treat everybody the same. That's the fallacy of the whole criminal justice system. I mean, we're supposed to just impose that portion or that as much pressure as we need to impose so that we can turn the person around to become a productive citizen. What pressure you would need, what pressure I would need would be completely different. I mean, I'm a wimp. I don't need very much pressure for me to turn around.
All right. Well, let's say, for example, Washington, D.C. The Trump administration has put Washington, D.C. as being a terrible area. We need to send a National Guard into Washington, D.C. because it's all the horrible crime that's going on.
Wait a minute. The mayor there conceded. The mayor conceded that it worked. And so it's not just Trump. The mayor thanked him for doing that. So I think there's a consensus on both sides of the aisle that it worked.
That's the point I was trying to make. So in Washington, D.C., it says over 90% of arrestees were released without a financial bond. Of the people that were released in fiscal year 2022, 93% of people were not rearrested when released pre-trial. In fiscal year 2019, 99% were not rearrested for violent crimes. So, I mean, is that an example? Is that proving that it's failing? I mean, San Francisco, let's see, following collaboration, this is, let's see, blah, 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 blah. The San Francisco Pretrial Diversion Project helps alternatives to fines dismissals for first-time misdemeanor offenders. San Francisco Pretrial Diversion Project reduced the jail population by 47% between 2019 and 2020. When cash bail was eliminated, San Francisco's violent crime rate fell over 15%, while the national violent crime rate rose by 5%. The city's new criminal activity rate, of which people commit new crimes while awaiting a trial, is about 10%, putting it on par with D.C. So if there's also evidence that shows that the longer you stay in jail before trial, the longer you stay in jail, the more likely you are to be able to commit a crime after release from jail.
Okay,
so
that what you're quoting right there is not science. That's just a talking point. I mean, I'm very familiar with San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco's crime rate is so great that, the Nancy Pelosi federal building, they told their federal employees not to start working from home because it wasn't even safe to come to work. And commercial property values are selling for 30% to 50% of what they were selling for 3 or 4 years before because of the crime rate. You're quoting pseudoscience. I mean, the listen to the law enforcement people. They'll tell you that a lot of crime, a big percentage of crime is being committed by the same group of people. They arrest them, they release them, they arrest them, they release them. Then you've got this another in the gray area between the law and order people and the crime people that are watching every day. When you are not arresting, when you have when you've decided you're not going to prosecute these crimes anymore, like mostly drugs in San Francisco, and you've got runaway drug problems in your community, then you've got a problem. And the people that are living in the gray area, they're trying to decide, am I going to follow the law and order people, or am I going to follow the lawbreakers? And they're falling on the side of lawbreakers because of, it's not, this is all pseudoscience. We're going to change felonies to misdemeanors, and we're going to call that a success and a decrease in crime. That's the period of time that we're in right now. We're not quoting, if you do a search on Google for crime statistics, you're going to come up with a whole bunch of pseudoscience from these advocacy groups, because they figured out they can flood Google with it. And every one of those articles would have concluded crime is going down. You don't have to believe us. Just look at the FBI statistics. The only problem is the FBI statistics were amended in October of last year to show crime was going up a month before the election. And suddenly we didn't talk about crime anymore. We just talked about Trump was a fascist. So yeah, let's go to the academic institutions that are issuing their research, which completely contradicts the stuff that you're talking about. You hear, from the activists, we just need to defund the police and we'll be safer. Well, there are actual studies out saying when you defund the police, crime goes up substantially, murders go up substantially, and the people who are going to suffer the most are the very minority communities that these same people say they're trying to help.
Well, what does defunding the police mean to you when you hear that? What does that mean? Does that mean eliminate funding altogether? What does that mean to you? What do you believe that people are trying to do when they say defund the police?
Well, the studies say that from academia that for every number of police officers that you reduce the police department, your murder rate goes up. And since 50% of all murders are committed against young black males in the United States, it's going to disproportionately affect young black males. So to say to either reduce or defund the police, you are advocating for your murder rate to go up. But politics is such in this country that we're saying that's political code. It's not supported by science, but we still have a whole bunch of politicians proposing to defund or decrease the funding for the police.
Well, to me, defunding and decreasing the funding potentially is the same thing. There are definitely people who are police abolitionists who just want to get rid of police altogether, and that's I think another part, but that's not the main. But here's the thing: if a lot of the times when people talk about defunding,
but how can you justify?
I let you talk for a while. Let me make my point that I want to make before we move on, or before you can retort, I guess. A lot of times when people talk about defunding police, it's not using police officers as mental health officers, but putting money into mental health so that people can get the mental health care that they need, so that the crimes that are committed because of mental health issues will be lessened, not because of the fact that you're actually trying to do a preventive measure versus a reactionary measure. And an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? Isn't that true in almost everything?
No, it's not true in this situation, because look in California, the homeless situation there. A large percentage, probably 70% of those people have mental health issues. And how can you make these people get treatment? So they're just living on the street, and you say you've got a mental health issue. The only way you can compel these people to seek treatment is with the hammer of the criminal justice system. And when you take that hammer away, look at Portland when they decriminalized heavy drugs for a period of time, and they were everybody will seek treatment because it's no longer illegal. Nobody sought treatment, and they finally let those laws lapse, because when you get rid of the hammer of the criminal justice system, then there's no incentive for people to receive any type of treatment, drug treatment or mental health treatment. And so those problems continue to grow. And so I think it's very disingenuous, and especially when the criminal justice system has already expended all those resources to provide that mental health service, all those mental health services in our criminal justice system. So what are we doing? We're still providing that funding for the criminal justice system not to provide it, and then we have no way to force people to get that treatment because we're using the King's X of criminal justice reform to just dismiss the case. We're not dismissing the case and ensuring they get treatment, which we have set up in the criminal justice system. We're just dismissing the case and kicking them out of the criminal justice system because we don't want to pay for it anymore.
Well, I would argue that when we're talking about, the making sure that people can get the help that they need, it's not necessarily the people that are already suffered from the system that was pre-existing. It's the people that we're trying to make sure that the people don't get into the trouble in the first place by giving them the help that they need before they start, getting to the point where they become unhoused. So,
but the biggest
example,
problem we have in the criminal,
I had Ed Carlson.
The biggest
on my
problem
show.
we have in the mental health is the revolving door. They get off their drugs, they get arrested, they get in jail, they get on their medications, they get handled, they can handle them, they get out of jail, they get off their meds. It's just a revolving door. If we could figure out a way to fix that, we'd be billionaires.
I've had Ed Carlson on my house. Ed Carlson ran for one of the Louisiana House districts back in 2023, but he's also the chief executive officer of the Odyssey House here in Louisiana. And when he was on the show, he was talking about how when they got an increase of funding to try and help people, with mental health, with substance abuse issues, that when the more money that they have to do that, the better they are, the better suited they are, and then the more successful they are when it comes to actually getting the people help that they need without having to use the large hammer of the federal government. Now, and speaking of New Orleans, we have a situation in New Orleans where we have, we also have here in New Orleans have eliminated money bail for people arrested on municipal offenses. There was a 337 increase in the number of arrestees released without bail between 2009 and 2019, 1.9% to 8.3%. Only 3.1% of those people were rearrested in that pilot program that released low-risk accused people without bond. So, where you say that there are failures, I think that's a success. I think that is, again, and one of the problems with requiring, a cash bail to get out is that it does make it so that the people who are in poverty, the people who are lower middle class folks, the working class people who might be accused of a crime, those people are less likely to be able to pay the bail to be able to get out, whereas the people who have money who commit horrible crimes, shouldn't be able to just get out of jail because, I'm able to put up $500,000 of bond or $1 million bond or however much the bond is. I'm able to, or secure it with some property or whatever, where I only have to put up 10% of it or whatever, however it is. That's not treating people equally under the law as required by the Constitution. If you are a dangerous person, if you are somebody who is, accused of being a dangerous person, be it a murderer, a rapist, any of those other people, why should your ability to be able to pay bail enable you to be able to walk free where somebody else accused of that same crime who is living in poverty, who is working class, even middle class, when they wouldn't be able to do so, and then they get stuck with the ramifications of being accused of a crime that they may or may not have committed. Meanwhile, the ones who are the wealthy ones get to walk around, get to they might have their passport taken, they may not be able to travel, but they still get to be able to live their lives during the point where they're in trial. And that, to me, that is one of the issues that the elimination of cash bail is trying to fix. Not to put violent people on the street, but to keep violent people from the street. And you can't, while in this particular case with Brown in North Carolina, with this particular case, you have the situation where, I think they should have been able to look back and say, he was arrested. It was a violent crime. So therefore, there should be no pretrial diversion. There should be no pretrial release. He should be held without bond, just like anybody else in that situation should have been held without bond. So I think the judge there did make a mistake. But if you look at Trump's executive order and the way it's worded, it wouldn't have covered Brown to begin with. So anyway, any final points on that issue before we move on to the I guess, the main topic, which is whether or not the mass deportations are improving crime in this country.
Sure. Well, the type of release matters. There's a reason why the private bail system has been around for over 200 years in the United States. It's because it does one thing, and that is it gets people to go to court. The federal system has had the very debate that you're talking about. And we want to treat everybody the same. And so, you know what the federal system did? The federal system essentially went to a detain or release system. And the result of that is that over approximately 75% of all pretrial people arrested for federal crimes are detained. Now, you can imagine the effect of that system. If we did that on the state level, it would bankrupt a state. We can't afford to detain 70% or 75% of the people who are arrested. We can't afford to just detain them until trial on the state level, because the states are the ones that do most crimes, or prosecute most crimes.
But at the federal
we can't
level,
afford that. So we have to find a medium ground. And a medium ground is we have to figure out people who can be released and people who cannot be released. And the system that we're using currently has been held constitutional. So this equal protection argument has been rejected by the courts. And so that's the system. We don't have anything that comes anywhere near the equivalent. And so this whole thing about, well, we need to do this, we need to do this, until we have something that's comparable, that has the same low failure to appear rate, then we don't have an alternative. Then we're just releasing people, and what you're not looking at is the dismissal rate on cases. So you look over time at that court, and the dismissal rates are going up every year because their backlogs are growing, and they're doing that to prevent collapse of the criminal justice system. So we're compromising public safety by doing these other types of release, and you don't even know it.
All right, so
sorry. Yes.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I was typing something as a little note that I wanted to make. Whatever. But I mean, the federal system, often, I would argue, now maybe my perception of the federal system is wrong, and you can correct me if you believe I'm wrong. But a lot of times, I don't believe that. A lot of times, it's the state systems that are catching the vast majority of crimes, and the federal government comes in only if it's a federal crime. But if it's like a major, violent crime, I mean, how many times do you see it where, the federal government comes in and says, okay, well, we're going to come in and deal with this murder, even though the state's already dealt with the murder? I mean, sometimes it happens if there are like civil rights issues or whatever that pop up, and, you can make the argument or whatever, but even those often fail, or with the Department of Justice not even bringing lawsuits against the individuals who are accused of the crimes, because the threshold to get those civil rights charges are kind of high. So if you have the situation where, I don't think it's necessarily correct to look at how many people the federal government detain versus release and make it comparable to the states, because I think the states deal with a lot of lesser crimes that the federal government doesn't worry itself with. Like, the federal government is not worrying itself with, $20 shoplifting charge, right? I mean, the federal government is going to worry itself more with, much larger crimes. So I think it's kind of hard to say, okay, well, these amount of people are being detained versus released on the federal level. I don't think you would see 40, 50, 70, whatever the number you said it was. I forget off the top of my head. Whatever that number you said.
75.
75. I don't think you're going to see 75% of the people detained at the state level, because so many of the crimes at the state level are of those, lesser varieties. And there's no reason, if somebody steals $20 candy bar, or not, I mean, that's expensive, $20 worth of candy, I should say. If somebody steals $20 worth of candy, that is not necessarily somebody that's should have to made to pay bail to be able to get out, even though it is technically you're stealing, but it's not like, stealing a car at gunpoint or whatever. And if stealing a car, if you're accused of stealing somebody's car at gunpoint, then absolutely hold him in prison, hold him in jail before the trial. And I would say, if you're rich or poor or somewhere in the middle, I don't think that there should be at that point a difference with all other things being equal as to how things are getting treated. Now, if somebody has never committed, okay, go ahead.
There's a study that's addressed this, where in California, in Yolo County, where the district attorney compared two people similarly situated, and he called them nonviolent offenders. One released on simple release, like you're talking about, and the other released on a private industry surety bond. And he found that the person released on a simple release had a 200% on a nonviolent offense, had a 200% greater chance of committing a new violent offense in the next 18 months. Now, if you look at that number and you say that that's accurate, and that's been looked at by the California legislature and they cited that for the reason why they were not enacting further bail reform. You can't justify anybody being released on simple release unless they just have no criminal history whatsoever.
I would want you to send me the link to that study so I could actually look at that, because it sounds counterintuitive to me. But anyway, the main part of the show.
Well, but it was also cited in the president's executive order.
Okay. Well, I trust this president as far as I can throw him. So I don't necessarily. We have a president who is using studies to say that Tylenol causes autism, or when other studies have shown that it's not happening. So there are a lot, and we're going to get into some of the reasons why I don't trust this administration on their numbers or the so-called facts that they give in the next subject that we're going to talk about. So I think now is a good time to move on to that topic, because I think it naturally flows at this point. So I guess I'll let you start off again. Where are you in the group of people who would argue that because of the actions of ICE and Border Patrol and Donald Trump's mass deportation efforts, that you believe that this country is safer and is becoming safer because of it? And if so, why?
Well, when you remove criminals from our streets, then they are committing. Then if they are repeat recidivists, they're not in the pool any longer to commit additional crimes. So when you're removing murderers from our streets and then deporting them, then they're no longer here to commit violent offenses. So. Isn't that what the president is saying that they're focused on? Isn't that what ICE says they're focusing on? Isn't that's what
they
Holman
say.
Says he's focusing on?
That's what
you don't believe that?
No, not at all. Not one bit. Why is the murderer of Laken Riley not deported to the El Salvadorian prison? That person is still here. That is somebody who has committed a violent crime here.
But he's not just running free. He's here because he's in jail.
He's
because
in prison.
They're trying him for that murder.
Well, he's found guilty of that murder. He was found guilty. Done. That's over with. So why not
deport
him to the? Okay.
He's going to serve his time, and then when his time's over, they're going to deport him because they thought that the offense that he committed was so great that he needed to serve time. What about people who have committed crimes in other countries before they get here? Does that mean that they're not a criminal because they didn't commit the crime in our country? And that doesn't justify. Are we saying we should not be removing criminals, people who have committed crimes before they came to our country? We should not be removing them from our country. We should just be accepting of them.
If this administration,
where do you draw the line?
If this administration was going after the worst of the worst, as that they were saying, then I wouldn't have any basis to complain. But let's look at.
Wait a minute. Wait. But that's what they say they're doing, and you're choosing.
But I don't believe it. I'm not just. No, it's not a choice to not. Well,
then just imagine for a moment that it was Biden saying that. Would you believe it then? And if your answer is yes, then maybe politics is influencing your opinion and not the facts.
No, well, here's some facts, okay? It started off as like about 18 to 20 people. It's now risen to over 100 people. 100 people who are cruise ship workers whose cruise ships were based out of Norfolk, Virginia, 100 of those people have been detained, deported, and banned from this country with no evidence, no proof that they've done anything wrong. They have not, they've accused some of them of crimes, but they never put them into the criminal justice system to prove that they committed any sort of crimes, nor were they given the ability to file a writ of habeas corpus or challenge their detainment as was required by the 9-0 ruling made by the Supreme Court, including the very conservative justices Alito and Thomas. When I first started reporting on these cruise ship workers, it was about 18 to 20, and then it went up to 30. Now the number is over 100. These cruise ship workers were not here in violation of our border policies. They were here on work visas. They were legally working here in this country, and ICE still detained them, deported them without any sort of hearing, and then banned them for 10 years from returning. That is not making our country safer, and that is not telling me that this administration is going after the worst of the worst. That's telling me that the administration is looking at these people who happen to be Filipino and saying, hey, we're just going to deport you just because. Now, some of them were accused of having, like child pornography on their phones, but prove it. That should be, if you're accused, if they were accused of having child porn, then investigate the crime, figure out where these children are being harmed from, and then put them through the criminal justice system, find them innocent, not guilty or guilty, not innocent, find them guilty or not guilty, and then if they're guilty, absolutely deport them and ban them for life, not just for 10 years. There's a PhD student who had a green card here legally, and he was detained for a week in San Francisco's airport and then moved to a detention facility in Arizona, I believe, because of a 15-year-old pot charge that he already did community service for. This is not somebody who is the worst of the worst. This is somebody who is studying, I think he was either Lyme disease or West Nile virus, working on a vaccine as part of his studies for that. And this is not somebody who is a threat to you or me or to anybody else. He went back home to South Korea to go to a relative's wedding, and then when he arrived back here in the country, they detained him for a week and then moved him to a detention facility. Not the worst of the worst. An Iranian woman living in the suburbs of New Orleans, Louisiana, in Orleans Parish, in the Lakeview neighborhood, had been given permission by previous administrations to stay here in this country. Detained. She was eventually released, but still detained. They came in 5 minutes, snagged her off from the front yard. Family didn't even know. The neighbors had to tell them. A child from Mexico. Okay, but I need to go over all these because these are very important. A child from Mexico who was given permission to come to the United States, somewhere, I think it was either San Diego or Los Angeles, but given permission to come to the U.S. to get treatments for her health conditions. The Trump administration rescinded, revoked that permission, and then deported that family out of the country. That child was not the worst of the worst. That child was not a threat, and there's no evidence that has been provided that their family was also a threat to anybody around them. A child citizen was deported with her family while she was getting treatment for brain cancer. No evidence that her family had done any wrong other than crossing the border in violation of our border policy, but yet the Trump administration couldn't make an exception and say, okay, while your citizen child is getting the care that they need, we will allow one of you to stay with her so that she can have that support while that citizen is getting the needed medical treatment. Instead, they said, look, we're deporting everybody. You can either leave your child here or you can bring your child home, or you can take your child home with you. And they didn't even let her have the medicine that the child needed to be able to, help with the condition that she was dealing with. So where in any of those people are the worst of the worst? Where are those people the violent offenders that we were told? Even Joe Rogan out there has been out there saying, and I disagree with Joe Rogan on a whole bunch, but even Joe Rogan is out there saying, hey, if people who have been here for 25 years and if their only crime is coming here in violation of our border policy, or being undocumented and not checking all the boxes or whatever, but they've otherwise been here living peacefully and doing anything and working, doing the jobs that other people don't want to do, allowing employers to pay them substandard wages because the employers can get away with that. Why are these people getting deported? Why are these people getting detained? Why is ICE going after these people? Like, these are not the people who are the worst of the worst. These are not the people that they told us.
Wait a minute. Who sets policy on immigration in the United States? Who sets that policy? You? The courts?
Law.
Or is that the executive branch? No, if they're given permission, it's from the executive branch.
Congress sets the laws.
No, you're conflating so many different things. You confused so many different issues and trying to make it into one. Where you are stopped or where you are caught if you are coming to this country, and how long you've been in this country, is all defined by law. And so the degree of due process that you get depends on how long you've been here. If you have an order of removal,
where in the Constitution is that?
No, I said in the law. Because
but the ultimate law of the land is the
out.
Constitution, and the Constitution requires due process.
And the Supreme Court has addressed what due process means, or the courts have addressed what due process means at each level. You just don't like it. So
I agree with the Supreme Court.
You've received all the due process that you've needed. You are deserved. And so the only habeas corpus you can file is you dispute that you're the person. And so you're saying, everyone can file a habeas corpus at a certain portion of the proceeding. The only habeas corpus you can file is I'm not this person. That's not what you're talking about.
100 cruise ship
every
workers.
time.
100 plus cruise ship workers in Norfolk, Virginia.
Am I going to get to talk now? Or do I not get to talk?
I will interrupt you when I believe that you're misrepresenting what I'm saying. Then I'm going to interrupt you, and you could do the same to me if you feel that I'm misrepresenting you. I think you're misrepresenting me when it comes to the fact that that I'm not wanting people that I'm disagreeing with the Supreme Court. That I'm saying that that people there are people who only habeas corpus is this is not me. I mean, but you have to. The Supreme Court said 9-0. Everybody gets the opportunity to file a writ of habeas corpus. Everybody, and this administration, those 100 plus. You can laugh all you want, but the 100 plus.
But the habeas corpus is because they've already gotten all the due process they're entitled to.
The cruise ship workers got none. The cruise ship workers got none. They got none. Oh my gosh! They got none. They got no due process. They were detained. They were deported immediately.
The law does say if you're caught within a certain distance of the border, you can be immediately removed and taken out of the country. And so that's due process.
They were working
under
here
the due
legally.
Process clause.
They were working here legally. They had legal work permits. They were there was no violation of the law for them being here. They followed the law. They went through their employer at Carnival for most of them, if not all of them. They went through their employer. The employer, I guess, made sure that they had the appropriate, I's dotted and T's crossed.
What's going on is you disagree with.
Why are you saying no?
Disagree because you disagree that the new executive office, the new administration, has changed the enforcement laws. Instead of saying anybody that wants to can come into the country, we're not going to allow that anymore.
That is a straw man argument.
You're what? That's
a straw man argument because I'm talking.
That's actually the opposite of what you're doing. You're doing a straw man argument saying, look at how all these poor, pitiful people that they're taking advantage of. I mean, no.
Yes. I'm looking at these people who are not violent criminals. Who
sets immigration policy? The federal government does. No, you set it.
The federal government does set immigration policy. Wait. There's a combination of law that are passed by Congress, and then there's the enforcement of the law that's done by the by the executive branch. And then, of course, the judicial branch comes in and says whether or not the executive branch is enforcing the law properly or not. And the
Do you
Supreme
at
Court,
least
the
admit
Supreme
that
Court
Biden
said,
was not enforcing the law for the last 4 years? Do you at least admit that?
I'm not admitting that at all. No.
Why not? Why not? I think everybody that can see what's going on would agree that Biden was not enforcing any of the immigration law. He was telling people, come, we'll let you do whatever you want.
Biden wanted more money
borders.
Biden wanted more money to be able to process these people through the courts.
Yeah,
through the,
Biden said we couldn't close our border because we needed to have a new law, and we just found out we could
and then
close
Donald
the
Trump
border.
said, "Don't pass the law because if you solve the problem before I'm elected, I won't get elected." So Donald Trump interfered with the process to try and told the Congress to say, "Look, do not pass this law." That was a bipartisan bill. But even then, whatever Biden wanted to do on
Republicans.
What I don't understand here is that those 100 plus cruise ship workers have nothing to do. If you believe that Biden was a failure on the border, if you believe that Biden completely screwed up, if you believe that Biden let all of these people come in illegally against our policies, if you believe all of that, that is irrelevant to those 100 cruise ship workers in Norfolk, Virginia that were detained, deported, and banned. Because those people were here working legally. Those people were here, not harming anybody. Those people were here and did not
get deported?
Yes, they got deported. But that doesn't
Okay,
the fact that they were deported doesn't justify the actions of the administration. It condemns the
So
administration.
you just disagree you disagree with the way that Trump and his administration enforced existing law, because we don't have any court saying that he should wrongfully deported these people, bring them back. We've had a court do that.
The court ruled
we had
that
one court, but not this one.
Garcia was wrongly deported to El Salvador because
now
the court said he wasn't allowed to do it. I'm not switching. I'm using Garcia's example of the fact that the court's absolutely. I'm countering your argument.
The same one.
I am countering your argument.
For that example.
I'm countering your argument.
Him as an example too. So on the ones that have been deported that you just mentioned that you're so upset about, there's no court that said they were wrongfully deported, bring them back. We know a court has done that for Garcia.
Who's going to have standing to bring those? Who's going to have standing to bring that case?
Garcia wasn't in the country and somebody brought it on his behalf. You think they can't do it for them too?
It's much more difficult because the courts are very, very, very firm on, especially when you get to the federal level, as to who can bring the cases and who can't. But yeah, I'm going to absolutely 100% disagree, and I'm going to say that the administration was full of crap when they said that they were going after the worst of the worst, the violent offenders. Those 100 cruise ship workers were not violent offenders. The PhD student who had a 15-year-old pot charge was not a violent offender. The child from Mexico who was given permission to get medical treatment here was not a violent offender. Even the child citizen and their parents who were here in violation of our border policies were not violent offenders. You started off this conversation by saying that this administration was going to go after the worst of the worst, was going to go after the people.
That is misquoting me.
All right,
that is misquoting me because you said...
Chat, I'm going to ask the chat. Am I misquoting? I'm going to ask the chat. But go on. Continue.
Is it reducing crime by removing those people? And I said, yes, we're reducing crime by removing criminals. Absolutely.
And then you also went on to discuss the fact that the administration was going to go after the ones that were doing the hard crime, the violent crimes, the crimes of I
believe they have. I believe that is what they're focusing on. But you know what? I also believe the federal government, the executive branch, the president and the executive branch sets immigration policy. And they won the election, so they get to set the policy. And when we have a judge say that Trump cannot call in the National Guard and he can't deploy them, when they're putting their judgment above the president on an issue, you're going to see, that's the reason why you're seeing the courts jump in and vacate orders, stay orders, is because these things have never happened before. And you would argue, well, we've never had a president. No, we've never had a judiciary that stepped in and inserted their opinion in the place of the executive branch's opinion, since the executive branch is the one that gets to say. That's what you're really saying. You disagree with what the executive branch is doing it, and so you disagree with them, and so you think they're wrong. They're the ones that get to decide.
The Supreme Court said that they're wrong. The Supreme Court said 9-0 that they were wrong, that they were required to give all of the people that were detained the ability to reasonable time to file a writ of habeas corpus, and they didn't do it for any of them. They didn't allow that for any of them. And ever since that ruling, it's been a rush. They've been rushing. They didn't do that. They didn't give the people they were supposed to give those people, those cruise ship employees, plenty of time, enough time, a reasonable amount of time to challenge their detainment. But no, they didn't do that because this administration is lawless. Just because the administration has the
absolutely not.
Wait, no, let me.
They are not lawless.
Oh, they absolutely are. If they're ignoring the Supreme Court order that says that you have to give everybody the ability to file a writ of habeas corpus, and then you deny the ability of people to file. That's not a talk. That's facts. A talking point is something that comes from the parties and that comes something out. No, this is something that I've come up with personally myself based on what I've read from the Supreme Court.
It's just like Garcia. Garcia, when they removed Garcia, that was a violation of a federal order. No, there was no written order and you can't enforce an oral statement. And so that's the reason why the court stepped in and wouldn't let that judge hold the government in contempt, because he never even reduced what he was saying to writing about that. And then he's trying to enforce it for contempt against the government. I mean, you can't tell the government orally to do something and then you write a written order saying something else, and then you're going to hold them in contempt. I mean, that's black letter law, but we have a judge trying to hold them in contempt. This administration has not violated court orders. And I mean, they go on and on and on about they're not violating court. It's a talking point from the other side to say this administration is lawless. With respect, I would say that.
I completely disagree, simply because of the fact that, again, if the Supreme Court made that ruling, and it wasn't like a 5-4 ruling, it wasn't 6-3, it was 9-0. Every single justice on the Supreme Court, and that's the Supreme Court, right? That's the Bain one. That's the one that's supposed to say whether or not, the actions of, that a law is constitutional, or that the actions of the administration are following the law. And when the Supreme Court has to tell the administration that they have to give people enough time to file writs of habeas corpus, that means, what does that mean? That means that they were not doing that, so that the Supreme Court has to step in and tell them, you need to do this, and they have not yet done so. They have continued to disregard that ruling, disregard the Supreme Court ruling that requires every person, regardless of legal status, regardless of citizenship status, regardless of anything else, that they are supposed to be able to challenge their detainment. And I will continue to talk about those cruise ship employees, because I don't understand how people who are conservatives, how people on the other side of the aisle can sit there and blame Biden for those cruise ship workers, or blame Biden, say, oh, because Biden did this, that means that the ICE and Border Patrol are justified in doing whatever it is that they're doing to try and clear the country out of all the people that are, quote, illegal. But in reality, again, those cruise ship employees have nothing to do with anybody who entered during the Biden administration. None whatsoever, because they are not here in violation of our border policies. They are legal workers, were legal workers until ICE stepped up and said, nope, you're gone, without any proof.
Tell me the name of that case.
Which case? The 9-0?
Because I Googled. Yeah, no, the cruise ship workers, because I just Google that.
There is no case.
Google AI
there was no case.
While no recent Supreme Court 9-0 ruling specifically addressed ship workers.
No, they did.
Okay,
so
you're saying there is. You're saying
I'm not. No, I didn't say that. I didn't say
there
that there is.
No opinion.
I didn't say that there was a 9-0. I didn't say that there was a 9-0 ruling specifically for for those cruise ship workers. I said that the Supreme Court.
Spent 20 minutes saying there was.
I said that the Supreme Court said that after with the Garcia. Wait, no. With the Garcia case, with the Garcia case and those other people who were detained
No,
at that time. The
absolutely
Supreme
not.
Court said it.
You
and
were saying
I was
that
using
it's
them
the
as an
cruise ship.
example.
9-0.
Right. No, that's not what I said. The cruise ship employees happened after the 9-0 ruling. I said there was a 9-0 ruling that said that the administration has to give people the ability to file a writ of habeas corpus, and then after that, that's why I'm saying that the administration is lawless, is because after that ruling came down, they are continuing to deport people, to detain people without due process. They are continuing to do that. And so if you want to look up Norfolk cruise ship Filipino deportees, I'm sure you will find plenty of information on the fact that these people have been deported and what ICE has said in response to that. But I never said that the 9-0 ruling was
because I
never said that the
understood you
9-0
to
ruling was over
specifically
the cruise ship
the 9-0
workers.
ruling was conspicuous. Yes,
No, the
I
9-0 ruling was to
misunderstood you
cover
because
everybody
what
who has
I
been
understood you
detained.
to say was it directly related to the cruise ship workers and that they were lawless because they were ignoring a 9-0 opinion that directly applied to the cruise ship workers.
It does apply to the cruise ship
they
workers.
Were the party.
No.
They were the parties in the case.
No. The Supreme Court said
I'm
after
sure
a different case,
I'm not smart enough to catch that you did not mean to refer to the cruise ship. That was just, okay, all right, I understand. I'm on the same page as you are now. So there's not a case that says the federal government is lawless on these cruise ship workers. There is no case saying that. You are arguing that by innuendo and applying a previous case and assuming facts that have not been decided by a court.
What I'm saying is that after the administration failed to give people the ability to file a writ of habeas corpus to challenge their detainment, the Supreme Court came down and said, you have to do that. And so every single detainment after that should have then been given the appropriate and ample time to file a writ of habeas corpus. They weren't.
And you don't know.
And you know what? The responsibility should be of the government to show that they did. The government should show that they did.
Because you don't trust them.
Of course not.
Trust them because you got Trump derangement syndrome.
No, the only derangement is continuing to support this lawless president. But let's continue to talk about. Let's go back to the idea of how supposedly we are safer because of mass incarcerations. If we go to hold on, just trying to find the right link here, the right article that I wanted that I had ready to go.
I'm scared.
All right, so I think it's here. There it is. All right, so according to the Federalist.com, where it's talking about how the first half of 2025 we are seeing potentially a record-setting low rates of homicide per capita, right? So they're saying that within the first half year of this administration, that we are seeing record lows as it pertains to homicide. Now, of course, we don't have all the information about all the homicides that are taking place, but it's being said that because Donald Trump is president and his mass deportations, the argument is being made that because of the mass deportations, we're seeing fewer and fewer homicides taking place per capita. Do you believe that?
No, I don't believe that. I believe what's going on is we have, since the lowest we've had, I think around 2020, crime went up substantially, almost record numbers, and it's probably down substantially from there, but it's still up 40% from the low. So, it's down, but it's not record down because we've still got a substantial increase in crime.
Whatever.
But per capita, whatever, it's still up. It's still up 40% over what it is. But to say it's up down 20% year over last year when it was really, really high, but it's still up. We can all play numbers. We can all play games with the numbers, and that's what that is.
All right. Well, according to the FBI on August 5th, 2025, the FBI 2024 reported crimes say that the homicide rate had a murder and non-negligent manslaughter recorded in 2024 and decrease of 14.9% compared to the previous year. So and of course the Federalist is also saying that we've had a commensurate in the first half of the year that we're seeing a per capita homicide rate of very similar amounts.
Well, wait a minute. When you talk about FBI statistics, that's something I'm very, very familiar with. Okay. I've written an article that's been published on that. Do you know the FBI has changed the system on the way they capture data, and they've been converting to the new system for several years. And to be able to report on the new system, you have to buy equipment. And so the time period you're talking about, the two largest law enforcement departments in the country didn't have the new equipment. And so social scientists, the people that look at that information, they said at that time period that this information was incomplete, so you shouldn't be relying upon it. But all of these activist groups were publishing articles saying, oh, you don't have to believe us, crime is down, just look at the FBI statistics. I published an article last October 2024, saying, here's all the reasons why you shouldn't believe the FBI statistics. 10 days later, they were updated, and suddenly they showed crime was up because they were additional law enforcement facilities had got the equipment, so their information was provided to the FBI, and suddenly crime was up. It's still incomplete. And so if you're relying upon FBI statistics, that's something I'm very familiar with. 2024, that's all garbage. And just Google it. You could just Google my name and FBI statistics. There's an article on it. And then you can see a Real Clear Politics article saying that, oh, shock of all shocks, the FBI statistics in October of 2025 or 24 were updated, and they showed crime was going up suddenly. So, yeah, that's something I'm very familiar with.
But you're still, I mean, it wasn't you that sent the email, but I mean, in the proposal to have you on in the show, I mean, the Federalist paper, the Federalist.com website was used as an example of a June 16 report on the Federalist that the crime rate is dropping, and that crime rate is dropping commensurate with the activities of ICE and Border Patrol in the whatever. So
that is very consistent with what I've said. Crime rate is up substantially, but it's dropped year over. It still doesn't change the fact it may be down 20% year over, but it's still up 40%. Those are not inconsistent statements.
And when was it? And it was up. You listed 2020 was when it was at its peak, right?
No, I think that's when it started going up. During COVID is when it started substantially increasing.
Okay, and who was president in 2020?
I think. Let's see. Is that Biden's first year?
Nope. Biden's
or is that when the government was shut down? So did we?
Biden's first year was 2021. Donald Trump doesn't even know that
because he thought that would be Donald Trump.
Right, he thought that the FBI, that Biden's FBI put FBI agents on January 6th when that wasn't Biden's FBI at all. That was his. But but there's the argument though that there's an argument.
That's a really cute statement. That's good. I like that.
Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, Donald Trump did say he did tweet out, truth out, that it was the Biden FBI that put 260 some odd FBI agents on the ground on January 6th, and Biden wasn't sworn in until 14 days afterwards. So, but also
good point. But it was also Biden's FBI that denied that ever happened at all until Patel came back in probably the last month and acknowledged that those FBI agents were planted in January 6th.
All right,
but that's just okay. That's just an extraneous issue.
Okay,
that's a rabbit trail we're following.
But it kind of goes to, there's some of the reasons why I don't trust this administration. Like, for example, Kristi Noem earlier in the year said that there was a span of 3 month period where there was 0 illegal border crossings on the southern border. Do you believe that?
Yes.
You believe that nobody crossed that border for 3 months? That the number of people that crossed was 0.
If you're asking me, do I believe this administration over the Biden administration?
I'm not saying over. I'm
even
not
a
saying
close
over
call.
anybody. I'm not saying over Biden. I'm saying a number, a number that was given by this administration that
Wait a
said
minute. We have to
0.
decide whether we're going to trust somebody. And you think that this is a lawless administration. I think this is going to be an administration that's going to go down in history as one of the most, one of the best ever. I mean, if you look at the celebration in Israel, they had a drone light show where they showed Mount Rushmore, and suddenly they added Trump to Mount Rushmore. We have a complete difference of opinion between two people. You think he's lawless. I think he deserves to be on Mount Rushmore. The gap between us is so wide, and I can hear you scoffing at me. But where in this country did politics get to such a point where we have such disagreement about one man? I mean, I think he only wants what's good for the country.
I
Okay.
plainly
I
disagree
think
with that.
he won the election.
He
Didn't
did win the
win
election. He did.
He got a majority of the vote,
He got a
too.
plurality of the vote.
So,
he didn't get over 50.
well,
That's
but
not a
he got
majority.
more votes
but the
than any
majority
other
doesn't
character.
matter. Why does the majority matter when a Republican wins? But when a Democrat gets a majority, they're like, well, that's not how we pick. That's not how we choose. But you know,
No,
it's not just Trump that
no.
I don't trust. If you want to, I mean, bringing in something that took place over the weekend or today, I mean, you literally have, you know, quote, young Republicans, as I was talking about before you came on, who were talking about, you know, spouting all sorts of hateful crap, like putting people in ovens and killing them, and talking about raping people, and talking about a whole bunch of other subjects that, you know, that are horrific. And J.D. Vance comes on and tries to make excuses for them. Even the young Republican, you know, people who were in charge of that group said these statements are terrible. They talked badly about their own membership who were saying these things, but yet J.D. Vance is like, oh, we shouldn't hold them responsible for their actions because they're young. Well, if only we did that for a bunch of other people in this country who are, you know, not white. But you know, some of the other reasons I don't trust this administration at all. First administration during COVID. Trump was interviewed by Bob Woodward and flat out told Bob Woodward that he downplayed the threat of COVID. Donald Trump said during his Tulsa speech that he told people to stop the testing for COVID because when you have more testing, you have more cases. But
okay, this is another rabbit trail. It's another rabbit trail. But the point is,
no. But the point is that Donald Trump doesn't want
you
to see real data.
Should the schools have been closed?
Yes,
based on what we know today, should the schools? Oh,
absolutely.
That's absolutely false.
Absolutely.
Should kids have been mandated to get a vaccine?
Absolutely.
In light of heart disease that's been created because of the vaccine,
the myocarditis that was happening was supposedly because of the vaccines was at a much lesser rate than the myocarditis that took place when you actually had COVID, because COVID caused myocarditis as well. So
the reason why schools closed was because of unions, politics, all politics. The reason why kids were given a mandate to have the vaccine, I don't even have a clue. But kids should not have been mandated to take this vaccine, and schools should have never been closed. The damage we've done to a generation of children in this country on their education and on socialization, it'll take them forever to recover from that. And you're still,
my
you're
kids are
telling us
socializing.
that if we had
we
had a new pandemic, you would be arguing for the exact same thing. So no lessons were learned from this.
And
pandemic.
if we have a new pandemic that's even more dangerous than COVID, but that has a higher fatality rate and or more infectious, you're going to have a bunch of conservatives who are going to want to go out and party and ignore any official telling them not to, and more people are going to die because of vaccine hesitancy and people who don't want to believe science and people who want to believe that Tylenol causes autism. But you brought up all the point of the school closing.
Wait a minute. The autism thing isn't Trump. That's from Harvard. There was a Harvard study that said that.
And the
we're
person
saying
that
it's
gave
Trump.
that Harvard study said that you should not make sure to not confuse correlation and causation. And other studies that were taking place after that, including one in Sweden and one in Japan, took into consideration siblings, and that eliminated the causation of that you could potentially see
now we're just
from that Harvard study.
downplaying it, but we're saying it was Trump. But there was a freaking study. There was a factual basis for the conclusion. I mean, they just didn't pull it out of thin air. You're
they pulled that one
the
without
fact
looking
that you
at the other
hate
ones.
Trump.
No,
I
they
mean,
only
it's
they only
Harvard.
looked at
They
the ones.
hate Trump.
They only looked at the one that helped them prove their biases, and ignored the other ones that contradicted the study, the initial study from Harvard. So, but the reason that I brought up the reason that I brought up
who gets to decide these issues.
The reason that I brought up the comments that he made in Tulsa about stop the testing. If you have more testing, you have more cases. Because look, whatever you think about vaccines and school closures, nobody should be against testing. If you're testing for a virus, I mean, if we would have had a more robust testing in this country, maybe we could have limited the lockdowns, because we could have seen where the flare-ups were happening and said, okay, we're shutting down this area for 2 weeks while this flare-up goes away. But we didn't have robust testing. Donald Trump wanted
the
us
whole
to
premise. That was the whole premise of
let me
shutting
finish.
down or locking down. We're going to lock down for a couple of weeks and we'll be all okay. That was absolutely false. I mean, we're locked down for almost a year.
Because there were people who refused to listen to the experts. But the point of making, which you keep
No,
interrupting me,
that's not
the
true.
point that I'm making about the testing is that Donald Trump came out and said, if you have more testing, you have more cases, which is a dumb statement, because testing doesn't cause cases, testing reveals cases. What Donald Trump didn't want you to know as a voter was how prevalent COVID really was, even though if he would have had a more robust testing and he could have shown a lesser mortality rate, if we would have had, a more complete testing system and said, okay, well, we have this many positives, but with this many positives, we're still having this many deaths, and therefore we're going to have lower the mortality rate and therefore make it seem less dangerous. That's not what Donald Trump wanted. Donald Trump wanted to mislead everybody, because he was in the middle let me finish. He was in the middle of re-election, and he didn't want people to know just how much COVID was. Why else would he want to stop testing? Why else would he want to stop testing?
Okay, so let me ask you a question. So
answer that question
You're such an expert on this. You're such an expert on this issue. Where's the whole herd immunity issue come in on all this? Where does herd immunity come in? Oh, we can't have that. I mean, wasn't there a country that refused to do lockdowns and everybody belittled them, and suddenly, and then when we look back, they fared a lot better than anybody else.
No, they did not. They proved it wasn't working. It didn't work. They proved that it didn't work. But again, why would President Trump want to not test?
Okay.
This is the point that I want to say. Why would he not want testing?
Here's my answer to you, and this is my direct answer to you. I don't know that he did that, so I am not going to agree with that, because oftentimes with people that have Trump derangement syndrome, they attribute things to him that end up not being true. Like the whole Trump peed on some bed and there was some conspiracy, and that all turned out not to be true.
I can't play you the clip because unfortunately my system does not actually allow me to play the clip for the chat and for you. Because there's no way I would need to get like virtual cables to be able to put the audio back to you. But if you look up Tulsa, look up Tulsa, Trump, Tulsa, and stop the testing. And you'll see that in his Tulsa, Oklahoma speech, he said, when you have more testing, you have more cases. That is a direct quote from him. And
I'm sure that you interpret that to mean he was running for re-election, and so he had a sinister motive, which I don't think Trump has. And I think he's only looking for what's best for the country. I don't see any way that a man that has as much money as he does would put up with the crap of trying to run this country unless he had the best
intentions. Now he's making more money. Now he's even richer than he was before.
Okay. All right.
Because
I understand. Someone who has a bad intent.
He's using his power to help the Trump organization and his connections to have the Trump organization
here's
open
the
up a new
interesting
resort
part.
in Qatar.
You reject all of those same arguments about Biden selling access to his office. You reject every one of them, but oh, Trump, it's absolutely true. It's give me a freaking break.
All right. Well, you can believe that about me if you want, but my point is that because he told Woodward that he downplayed the threat of COVID. He literally said that to Woodward, and I'm not happy with Woodward because Woodward wanted to sell a book, so he didn't release that until his book came out. And if we would have let that out a little earlier, then maybe people would have understood that he was downplaying the threat, and as such, was
Well, let me
lying to the
put
American
a
public.
different spin on this.
Let me get to the point. Wait. I'm just gonna. I need to say this point. I need to finish this point. Okay, fine. Go ahead, and I'll make my point.
Okay, my point is very simple. What can you imagine if y'all had just allowed Trump to get reelected? He would have been reelected, and he would have had probably a Democrat House and Senate. He would have gotten nothing done for the next 4 years. He probably would have been impeached a couple of more times, and the Republicans would have been reeling only because of what happened and the way it was done. Trump prepared. He worked his butt off to prepare for a second term. And now that it's happened, look at all that he's done. Look at all that he's accomplished. And that's directly results of actions like you're talking about. Y'all brought it on yourself.
Now to my point, which is that he told Woodward that he downplayed the threat specifically, which downplaying the threat means I lied to the American public. I told the American public that it's this, but that was not true.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
You don't agree that he told
He didn't say that. That's your interpretation.
No,
that's your interpretation of what he says.
He literally told him that. I think there's audio. There's audio of him saying that he downplayed the threat. It's an audio recording of him saying those words. He downplayed the threat. That's not what you just said.
What
did he in the audio recording that Woodward took in preparation for his book that he was interviewing Trump for, he told Woodward that he downplayed the threat of COVID-19, i.e., downplaying the threat means he told the public one thing, but yet it was worse than what he was telling the public. And then also he doesn't want to, have testing because when you have more testing, you have more cases. Direct quote. I can't think of any good, legitimate reason that anyone would want to reduce the numbers except for misleading the public like he did when he downplayed the threat. So then why would I believe Kristi Noem's comment that we had 0 people crossing the border? Especially, where is ICE operating now? Where is Border Patrol operating? Are they focusing at the border? No, they're in Norfolk, Virginia. They're in San Francisco. They're in New Orleans, targeting people who are not the worst of the worst because they want to get their numbers up, because they want to see their quotas up. They want to see the amount of people because they feel that if they can show more people getting deported, it doesn't matter what those people did, that they're making their base happy because that's what their base voted for, to vote to deport a whole bunch of people. And that's what they're doing. They're focusing on deportation. They're not focusing on stopping people from crossing the border. I have no reason to believe that number from Kristi Noem is correct. But here's the thing. Here's
respect,
the thing.
That is all horse crap. But okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Finish
so
horse crap.
The does eliminating or removing the people from the country who are here in violation of our immigration policy and just ignoring the other people that have been deported who are here legally. We'll ignore those for a second because most conservatives seem to want to ignore that anyway. 2023 data has shown that the incarceration rate for undocumented immigrants was 613 per every 100,000 as compared to 1,200 per every 100,000 for native-born citizens. Legal immigrants had the lowest rate of 319 per 100,000. Texas specifically. Texas is one of the few states that tracks criminal justice data by immigration status, giving us a more focused look. A 2020 federal study of the Texas data found that in 2020, again, Trump is president, that immigrants of all legal statuses were arrested at less than half the rate of U.S.-born citizens for violent and drug crimes and 1/4 of the rate for property crimes. Texas data between 2012 and 2018 also showed that the homicide arrest rate for undocumented immigrants was significantly lower than for U.S.-born citizens, 1.9 per every 100,000 versus 4.8 for 100,000. The people who are here, who are undocumented, are not committing crimes. Now, the Federalist paper, that the Federalist.com article that was given to me in the initial email that I got for in preparation for this show, for Let's Have This Show, was they were saying that the reason that perhaps these undocumented folks are, keeping their heads down because they're afraid of the Trump administration. They're afraid that the Trump administration is going to come after them and are going to deport them, so therefore they're going to keep their heads low and commit fewer crimes. But the data shows that they don't commit that amount of crimes anyway, because even when you didn't have Donald Trump, they wanted to keep their heads low because they didn't want to get deported. So they didn't want to get caught doing any of these other crimes because they didn't want to get deported, because they wanted to stay here. So the argument that they're not wanting to get deported so they're going to commit fewer crimes is valid. It's just not because Trump's policies. That's how they've been living for their entirety of their lives here. Can we show individuals like the murderer of Laken Riley, who, are horrible people and should have absolutely terrible person. And that's one of the, but if you look at the vast majority as a whole, we are at less of a threat from undocumented people than we are from U.S.-born citizens. I'm not going to say that we should deport U.S.-born citizens. What I'm saying is that the arguments that is being made, that Donald Trump's administration is helping to reduce violent crime, is helping to reduce crime in general, is full of crap. And that there's no data to show that, and there's plenty of information to show that this administration lied to y'all when they told you that they were going to go after the bad hombres, the worst of the worst, the people who are committing all these violent crimes, because that's not who they're targeting. That's not who they're going after. They care more about getting lots of numbers of people deported. They don't care about who they're deporting. And in the people they're deporting includes people working here legally, includes citizens, includes legal residents. And you just want to brush that off as being, the administration has the ability to be able to enforce immigration policy as they see fit. Well, that kind of sounds like the whole plenary power thing that Stephen Miller was talking about, but that is not the case because, again, the Supreme Court said 9-0. Okay, they must give due process.
Do I get to talk?
This due
process.
I'll finish my sentence, and then you could talk. They did not give due process. They have not cared about the rulings. In fact, I don't believe this administration has any desire to follow any court ruling, and they're going to push that as much as they can, because we've had a tradition in this country that we are going to. Okay,
you're way past one sentence.
Fine, I'm the host. I'm gonna filibuster a little bit, and then you'll get to talk. I promise you. That this administration is going to ignore the tradition of this country, that when the Supreme Court says something, we follow it to the best of that we can. And this administration is like, well, since the Supreme Court says that I'm pretty much untouchable because of whatever executive powers, and gives me the ability to do things and have amnesty or whatever from whatever it is that I do because I'm the president, then therefore they're going to ignore as many of those rulings as possible, including the 9-0 ruling saying that they must give people the ability to challenge their detainment. And until the federal government proves that they did in fact give all of these people the ability to challenge their detainment as required by the Supreme Court, then I'm not going to believe that they've done it. And the onus is on the administration to show that they're following the rules, not on anybody else to say that they're not. Because asking me to prove that they're not is asking me to prove a negative. The administration should have the responsibility and that's part of sunlight. We should have these sunlight laws that basically say, look, here's what the administration is doing, all out in the open. It should all be available to us to see, so that we can verify. I mean, Reagan said? Trust but verify. We should be able to verify that they are following the rules, and they don't want to do that for us. They would rather rush through everybody. Go ahead.
We trust and verify our enemies. Only on this conversation is Trump the enemy to you. He's not the enemy to me. He's not the enemy to our democracy. he is only, it appears, an enemy to the Democrats, and that's why we're getting this reaction. You just got through saying that Trump has deported citizens. That's an absolute lie. Trump can't deport citizens, and he can't deport a naturalized citizen unless he is alleging and has a hearing and a ruling that they lied on their application. So where you're saying that Trump is he hasn't, he can't, and you are misleading people when you say that. All of this comes down to, where we get to the real facts is who is the person who decides our policy on immigration. And I live in Texas. I've lived here under the Biden administration where Texas would try to do something to support its border. And the Biden administration would sue Texas to say, we are the ones that get to decide. And if we decide to do nothing, there's nothing you can do about it. And so I've lived under that.
Who does the Constitution grant the power to?
I didn't interrupt you.
You interrupted plenty. You did interrupt plenty. You interrupted plenty. But
okay, I just want one more sentence.
Go ahead.
That's the standard, I guess. I just want one more sentence.
Go ahead.
And if I filibuster,
you can have 5 more sentences. Go ahead. And then I'll ask the question. Then I'll ask the question. All
right, 5 more sentences. Let me start here.
And I'll be liberal with you as well. So go ahead.
Okay, when you say it's the onus on the president and his administration to prove, that's offensive to me because he's the elected leader of our country. He was just celebrated in Israel and Egypt for doing something that could never be done, that we have been told can't be done. And here we are saying, over there, they're saying he's a great leader, but here we're having a conversation where we can't, if he says the sky is blue, you're going to say, you prove it to me because you're untrustworthy? Is that where we are in this country? He can't, we're seeing that with immigration, with the National Guard. We're seeing judges put their opinion above the decider of that issue. And we saw the Ninth Circuit just have an oral argument, I think today, about that, saying we give deference to the executive on this. We don't put our judgment over his. And that's what this whole conversation has been. I don't like him as a person, so I am putting my judgment over his judgment. That destroys the whole concept of democracy, because the concept of a democracy is we rely upon the consent of the defeated in an election to govern the country. Well, in this election, the defeated are saying, no, we will not consent to be governed. We are encouraging people to go and shoot people. We are encouraging people to shoot President Trump.
Who's encouraging that?
You don't think okay, let's see. We just had a guy that was convicted of trying to kill Kavanaugh. And when the abortion decision came out, the leader of the Democratic Party, Schumer, stood on the steps of the Supreme Court and said, Kavanaugh and this other judge, y'all are going to get targeted for this. And what do you know? Somebody within days tried to kill him and his family, was aiming for 3 of the sitting Supreme Court justices. And y'all don't even have a problem with it.
I didn't say I didn't have a problem with that. That's not a question about Trump. Who's encouraging Trump?
Well, wait a minute. Now, you didn't say you had a problem with that then, but now you're saying, those poor Republicans, because they won't cast aspersions on some kids. I think all of them are wrong. But the problem is we've got one side that that's saying that Trump is a fascist. Trump is a threat to democracy. And what's unsaid is you need to go do something about it. And so then when somebody goes and does something about it,
on this show, I've plainly said those things about Trump being a fascist and a threat to our democracy. But I have said that we should do things legally about it. I have made it a point to say legally. not,
When you
I'm not,
say Trump is well, how is Trump a fascist? I mean, how is he? Has he killed millions of people?
I mean,
I
I would
mean,
say Trump is
where's he a fascist?
Trump's mishandling of the COVID pandemic. I mean, you're going to disagree with this, but I
That's
believe
not
that
a
Trump's,
fascist.
but I mean,
That's not-
I've literally flat out called Trump a Nazi because of all the different ways, and you could, I mean, I'm not going to repeat everything that I said the last show. I would urge you to go watch a previous show
And
of
how
mine
is
where
Trump
I did
a
have
Nazi?
a caller.
Has he
Right.
killed millions of people? I mean,
That's
we're
the problem. That's the
splitting
problem.
hairs.
Whenever I say Trump is doing things that are like that Nazis did, y'all always go to like 1944 Nazis and not 1933 Nazis.
Well, but that's what people think of when you say Nazi.
Well, they
that's
shouldn't
the reason why
because
you say it.
but that's because we have the poorly educated who Donald Trump said he loved after the 2016 Nevada primaries. It's
Well,
because
then
that,
you
is
should
that
be
when
more
they hear,
careful with your language.
well,
Then you should be more careful with your language.
Well, I
was
personally do.
using-
I personally make it a point to say that, I disagreed with calling it alligator Auschwitz because it didn't have a death. It didn't have Auschwitz was a death camp, and I call it alligator Dachau because I only call it alligator Dachau because there was no creation of a death camp when Dachau was created. It's just where he put the people that were political prisoners or whatever. So. And who's again?
Okay, having a place that we're taking people, assessing them, and then shipping them out, that makes that Auschwitz?
I didn't
That
say it's
makes
Auschwitz.
it Dachau?
I didn't say it's Auschwitz. I
makes
said
it
it's
Dachau?
more akin to Dachau. But there is
Oh
a
my
previous
God.
show. There was a previous show where I said Donald Trump is a Nazi, fight me or whatever, and that's the title of the episode. And you can go watch the conversation that I had with the individual if you so choose. I'm not going to rehash those arguments over again because again, limited time. But here's the question that I had asked you earlier that you had said you were talking about Biden and how Biden didn't help the Texas with the control of the border, and that the Biden administration said you can't do this, it's only us. Who does the Constitution grant the authority to enforce border policy and immigration policy, naturalization policy? Who has that power, authority under the Constitution?
The federal government.
Yes, the federal government. And what does the 10th Amendment say? What does the 10th Amendment say about the powers that the states get? What powers do states get?
The powers that are not delegated in the Constitution.
To the federal government, or that are not prohibited from the states as well. So, therefore, if the federal government is
So
given
if
the authority,
Biden chooses to do nothing, Texas can't do anything about it? That's what
Texas
you're telling me?
I'm
So,
telling you, the Texas what
Texas?
What authority would Texas then have? I mean, you had Abbott. You had Abbott sitting there putting barbed wired buoys in the middle of the Rio Grande.
And I think the Supreme Court eventually allowed those. So don't cut those down too much, because eventually the tide turned and those were allowed to stay, I believe.
And I'm sure, and we can agree and disagree on whether or not the Supreme Court, was correct on that ruling. But again, I don't recall that ruling in and of itself that it said that those berms or whatever were allowed to stay. But I mean, what kind of vile person puts hidden barbed wire under the water that could trap, maim, and kill
I don't think
people?
it was under the water.
It was
wasn't
under the
water.
barbed wire was under the water.
Absolutely was not hidden. It was not hidden. I mean, let me ask you this. When you have open borders, who votes in an election? Isn't that the problem?
Only citizens?
When you have open borders, who gets to vote?
Only citizens?
Well, wait a minute. We relegate the House of Representatives on just who's living in a certain area. So you
Right, but they
can
don't get the chance to
sacrifice
vote.
the citizens. Well, but you get more power in the House of Representatives because of the illegal
And Texas has
aliens that
abused
you've
that.
allowed in your state.
And
No,
Texas has abused
California.
that. No,
California is the one that's abused it.
California lost seats in the last census. Texas
And they
has
will
literally
lose more.
Texas has literally, what is it? I don't know if it was Barton or the other person. Who shouted "You lie" in the middle of the? I think that was the same person. I think he's from Texas.
Texas population is going up.
Right,
because
but Texas
of
has
California.
allowed themselves to shoehorn a non
allowed.
Yeah, Texas has used individuals who are not citizens to be able to pack districts to be able to allow
With
Republicans.
Absolutely not. You're arguing in
admitted
a
it.
circle. The federal government regulates immigration, so if they say they're not going to do anything and they're going to open the Texas border, there's nothing Texas can do about it. Oh, but Texas is taking advantage of that. Those
Well,
are
yeah.
two You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. You know
Texas
that, right?
Texas is no, because Texas, there's a difference between what the Texas is allowed to do on the border, which is nothing, and then what Texas can do with the people once they get there. I would argue that they shouldn't have been allowed to ship people into different states, because that is, to me, that was akin to kidnapping. But the Texas,
Oh no, they
the
only
Texas,
ship people that consented. So for you to say it's kidnapping when they only
misled
ship people
those
that consented.
They misled those
Oh
people.
my God!
Yes.
Of course they did, because
They did.
nobody would want to leave Texas if they knew the truth, because Texas is so great.
But Texas Texas has used the people who are here within their borders, their residents, regardless of whether or not they were legal residents or not. But they've used the non-citizens.
Wait a minute, they weren't
within their
legal
borders.
residents; they were illegal aliens, and they shipped them off to other
said
states.
that they have used both legal and non-legal residents to
For
form
shipping?
their
No, they haven't.
to form their districts. Because you're interrupting me, so you're not letting me finish my
Yeah.
point. To form the congressional
They haven't
districts,
formed their
to
district.
allow.
No.
Allow,
I disagree. I disagree with that.
Well, you can disagree all you want. It doesn't mean that you're right. Doesn't mean that I'm wrong.
What?
They have used the bodies of living residents, regardless of their citizenship status, regardless of their legal status, to be able to form their districts to allow Republicans to only represent 40% of that district, but still have a majority of the voting populace, because they shove in 20 to 30% of the people who are there who are residents who are non-citizens. So
No, I
they
don't agree with
benefit.
that.
You can disagree with it all
With
you want.
respect. With respect.
I mean, they flat out admitted this. I mean, I don't know what else you want me to say about that. But anyway, but bottom line is that I don't believe that we are any safer as a nation because of Donald Trump's border policies. I don't believe that we're any safer as a nation because of what this administration has done. I believe that this administration has been trampling on individuals' rights. I mean, the idea that somebody could, they talk about how they're all for free speech, but then as soon as somebody speaks out against, what they say, oh, they're the enemy within. Donald Trump. Do you want an example of how Donald Trump is acting like Hitler, referring to people in this country as the enemy within, which is exactly what Hitler said. He refers to us as the enemy. So if he views us,
wait a
as
minute. Are you really going to make that argument?
If he views us as the enemy, if he views us as the enemy, why should I look at him with anything but disdain? If he looks at us as the enemy, why? Look, I'm somebody. I was raised Jewish. I'm somebody who the Nazis and Klans people would want to be killed if they had their way. The people in that Republican chat. The young Republican chat would love to throw me in a gas chamber and see me perish because I'm
That's
Jewish.
not true. That is absolutely not true.
The people in that Republican chat, the people in those conversations
absolutely. I don't believe that.
Go
I don't
read
believe
what
that.
was said. They didn't talk about throwing people in gas chambers. They didn't talk about any of that.
Okay, what you're arguing right there is just a freaking identity politics. And that's what's gotten us.
Yeah, I am Jewish, and my identity is somebody as a Jewish American citizen who is put at threat when you have the Vice President of the United States making excuses for people between 18 and 40 who are saying Nazi bullshit. And I'm not going to sit here and just pussyfoot around the Vice President and this administration who panders. Look, I will bring up one of the other things. 1488 is one of the things that was said in that chat. 1488 is one of the things that were said in those chats that were released by Politico. 14 representing the 14 words that talk about the keeping the heritage for our children. Again, I don't know what those 14 words are. I don't memorize Nazi slogans to T, but I do. But there are 14 words that they use, and when they see the number 14, that means something to Nazis. 88, H is the 8th letter of the alphabet. 88, HH stands for Hail Hitler. When you see, you can moan all you want, but 1488 is a common phrase used amongst the Nazis, and was also used in that chat thread. And when Donald Trump
All
put
this
out
is
an
identity
executive,
politics.
when
This
Donald
is
Trump
using
put
acidic language to cut off the debate. Don't listen to them because they're Republicans. Because of your
don't
identity.
listen to them
You
because
can't
they're
listen.
Nazis.
You can't agree. You
And they're-
can't.
and-
Oh yeah.
because they're not, because
No,
these people
I
are
reject
spouting
that.
Nazi rhetoric. And guess what? The so-called executive order that Donald Trump put out there to supposedly fight anti-Semitism, the number of and the number of that was 14188, i.e. 14/88. So either Donald Trump himself was like, "Hey, let's do this," or somebody working in his administration was like, "Let's make this a Nazi. Let's put this Nazi dog whistle specifically."
So
There's
his
no coincidence.
anti-Semitism is really a conspiracy for the opposite. I mean, are you listening
What?
to yourself?
Yeah, no.
His anti-Semitism executive order
because
is
I
really
don't
the
believe
exact
that he wants to
opposite.
actually fight anti-Semitism because his base is full of people who are Nazis. That's why he wouldn't immediately.
Before
That's
he
why he
ran for
hesitated.
president-
That's why he
Before he
hesitated
ran for president, the far left loved him. Only when he became a
No, he
candidate
was
for
a
president did he
clown.
suddenly become all of
we
these
didn't
problems.
love him. I didn't
mean,
look at Donald Trump as
give
being
me a
some
break.
good paragon of virtue or anything. I didn't look here and say, "Oh, Donald Trump is great. Donald Trump is wonderful." Back in 2015 or before. No, he was a rich a-hole back then, and he's a rich a-hole now. But the only thing is that now his comments, like for example, I don't want black people counting my money. I want the people wearing yarmulkes counting my money. Now those statements have more direct impact upon me and the people in my family because he is perpetuating the idea that Jews are good with money.
No.
Which
Look,
he
Trump
is. He's
not a
perpetuating.
politician. He is not a politician, and so he makes statements
That's a no true
that are
Scotsman logical fallacy.
non-politician.
That's a
Oh,
no
yeah,
true
of course it
Scotsman
is, because
logical
everything
fallacy.
every time, of course, everything I say is wrong. Everything you say is virtuous, and so that's
I
the
flat
whole
out told you
point
that I
of
agree
this
with some things that
discussion.
you said before, so that clearly that's not true. And I don't disagree with everything that Donald Trump has done. I mean, if at the end of the day it turns out that he actually did something great over in Israel and with Palestine and Israel, great, wonderful. But I mean, there's evidence
wait a minute.
today.
You
There's
can't
evidence
say-
today
you
that
can't
they're
say-
not following the
You can't
rules.
say what he did was great. You can't say getting the 20-something hostages released is great. You can't even say that.
It is great that those 20-something hostages are released. I don't think we have peace over there
And-
yet because
Do you think those would have been released without Trump?
but the Hamas had agreed to that
No.
plan last year under Biden. And
Oh my God, that's what I was waiting for. This was really Biden. This was Trump redoing a Biden deal. That's
Yep.
bullcrap.
Biden literally
that's
had
okay.
Hamas agreeing to that, but I will fully just like Donald Trump told the Congress to not pass the legislation that would have funded
Oh, my
more
God.
judges
Yeah.
on the border to be able to process the people who were having asylum claims more quickly. Just like he interfered with that, I guarantee you that Donald Trump had a conversation with Netanyahu and said, "Don't agree to any deal until I become president again. Once I become president, then you can make the deal."
Well, with
Because-
respect to your representation about the border bill that Biden was trying to get passed, that's not correct. It would have doubled, tripled the number of people that would come in. We could only close the border if a certain number of people crossed in a day, and it could only be closed for that day. I mean, what you're saying about that bill, you're only cherry picking one or two things to make it sound like it was great when it was not great.
Then why did Donald Trump say to
we
not
would have
pass
never,
it?
we would never have been able to do what Trump did with the border with that bill being passed.
I don't believe Trump's
And
done
that's
anything
the
with the
reason
border.
why.
I don't believe Trump's done anything with the border
You
again
know?
because
So
no, not
really,
at all.
the
Because
border
I
is
don't
still
believe.
open. It's open today. We have people coming in just like we did under Biden. We have millions of people coming. They're just hiding it from us. Is that what you're arguing?
Well, the same administration that argued that we had zero
Okay.
border illegal. The same
Okay,
administration that when Kristi Noem said that we had zero people crossing the border, Kash Patel illegally. Kash Patel also said they seized a whole bunch of fentanyl coming across the border.
Well, there's a
Make
big
that make
gap
sense.
between zero
Make
and
that
a
make
million.
sense.
But
Make that make
makes
sense.
but that really explains a lot. So the
Remember
whole
when the
government
Republicans
is a
complained that
conspiracy right
Biden
now
that
to
Biden
cover
seized
up
fentanyl?
all the people that are coming into the country illegally right now. But can you see the people that are coming in illegally?
No,
Can
because
anybody see them?
ICE and Border Patrol are not focusing their efforts on the border. ICE and Border Patrol are acting. ICE and Border Patrol are acting. Look, I may have scoffed at you, but I haven't sitting there going.
Well,
you're not, at this point, I don't think you're debating in good faith anymore. So, I'm
well,
sorry.
I apologize, but I will say that, I mean, you show your true colors when you say the border is just as open as it ever has been.
I
But
don't
I
necessarily.
appreciate the
I just don't
conversation.
think it's been closed. I don't think it's been closed. I think that to say that nobody, 0 people have crossed the border is absurd.
No,
Because
no.
even
Now
if they've
you're backtracking.
no,
You're
that's
backtracking because you said it was open. You said it's not. It's just as open as it was under Biden. You said that. Now you're trying to change
I didn't say
it.
those words.
So
I didn't
stick
say
to
those
your-
words.
Yes, you did.
I don't think
Yes,
that
you
I don't
did.
think that Trump has done anything to worry about the border.
Let's go to the tape. Let's
All
go
right,
to the tape.
go back
I
and
mean-
rewind it. And if you can find me saying those exact words, then I'll
Okay.
do a mea culpa on the next show. But anyway, I think you were only supposed to be on here for what, about 45 minutes to an hour, and we're now at an hour and 45 minutes. So anyway,
Well, okay.
we can both
first
of us
all,
both of
I
us
don't
like to
think I've
talk for a
had-
very long time.
I don't think I've had as lively a conversation as this. I've probably only had one other one, and so that was as lively as this. So I appreciate it. I don't think we made any headway. We agreed on very, very little, and we disagreed so strongly. It's almost it's sad that we in some ways I would say we can't even have a civil debate because we disagree so much. And I'm sad for that. And so
Well, I mean,
I
I'm
apologize
sad
for
for that
anything
too,
that
but-
I did that contributed to that. But
Well,
that's the
it
state
is
of our
a sad
politics
thing,
today.
but I mean, the moment you brought up TDS is just, that to me is just like that's a cop out. To me, TDS is a cop out because that to me, when you say TDS, that is saying that I can't possibly have any sort of valid thing to say about the topic that I'm discussing because it must be because I don't like Trump. And yes, I don't like Trump, but that's not the reason why I say the things that I say. I say the things that I say because I do research. Like when I think I did more planning for this show than I've done for the last 20 shows because I wanted to make sure that I had
I
enough
understand.
data
I understand you're planning
data
shows, but I will just say I think the TDS is applicable. I mean,
All
I think
right.
when you say what you just said, you prove my point. So
Anyway,
I understand.
anyway,
I understand what you're saying.
One person, somebody had said in chat, Josh says, can we ask him questions from chat? Are you willing to take a couple questions from the chat before you head off?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Okay, sure. Okay, Josh, go ahead. You ask questions first, and we'll take a few questions, and we'll see how they go. First of all, hold on. I do need to give a shout out because Fred gave a $10 super chat. Appreciate you, Fred, for giving that super chat. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Fred.
So,
Fred.
let's see. So there's a small delay, so we have to allow people the ability to type or whatever. Let's see. Yeah, here's a good question. So you have Josh asked this question. There are people who have been apprehended at immigration court hearings and detained from those immigration court hearings. Do you think that that's productive? Do you think that makes it more or less likely? Now that was his question. I'm adding a little bit to it. Do you think that makes it more or less likely that the people who are dealing with immigration court are going to want to show up to their hearings if they know that when they go to the hearings that ICE is going to come and just detain them and then deport them, even though they're following the process?
I think what the question is really talking about is when they go to their criminal hearing in state court and immigration shows up at that hearing to detain them. I think that's the question because, they can be detained at their immigration hearing. So I think what he really means is because we have that example of the judge, I think in Wisconsin, that took them out a side door and she's being prosecuted. She filed a motion to dismiss based on absolute immunity, and that's been rejected, and it's set for trial in the next month or so. So do I think that's a perfect example of the situation that we find ourselves in. What is the safest way to take people into custody when there's an immigration hold on them? When you have a sanctuary state and they are saying they will not recognize or they will not cooperate with the federal government on a civil warrant. So that's what an immigration detainer is. It's a civil warrant. So they won't recognize that. Well, then the officers have to go out and pick up people from the streets, and they're looking for the safest places to do that. Court is one of those safest places because you have to go through security to get into the courthouse. So yes, I think that if we didn't have sanctuary cities or sanctuary counties or sanctuary states, we wouldn't have the need for that. It's the lack of cooperation from the local government that's causing this. It's not ICE that's causing this.
Well, there's no requirement for this for state and municipalities or whatever to follow it because, again, 10th Amendment and the Constitution giving the power of dealing with immigration.
Well, wait a minute. We can't say that. That has not been litigated. That has not been litigated whether a city or county or state government has to recognize or should recognize a civil warrant issued by ICE. So that has not been litigated. So what you're saying is, I understand, but it can't.
Until that's litigated, it's my opinion that states are under no requirement to do anything as it pertains to the enforcement of our border policies because that is an authority that is only given to the federal government. But here's one of the
additional resources to do. Okay.
ABC News, you give it whatever grains of salt you want to take with. It says here, federal agents are arresting migrants at immigration courts, in some cases after their deportation cases have been dismissed. Attorneys said that immigration enforcement officers have been waiting in immigration court, so not other court buildings, but literally waiting in immigration court buildings and arresting migrants who have had their cases dismissed, after which the migrants are placed into expedited removal proceedings by the Department of Homeland Security. Gregory Zhen, the Senior Director of Government Relations for the American Immigration Lawyers Association, said his group has tracked such courthouse arrests in 13 states and 19 cities over the last 2 weeks as of June 4th, 2025. Which is when this article was dated. They're being fast-tracked for deportation and are now going to be deprived of getting a fair day in court or a fair opportunity to have their case be heard. These kinds of tactics are ultimately undermining the people's sense in the courts that are safe, neutral space for them to come and have their fair day in court. So according to this news report, there are people who are not getting arrested at civil trials or whatever, but who are being arrested at the immigration courts in and of themselves and then detained and deported.
I need to look at that because I don't understand that because, there's for them to dismiss it and then take them into custody, there's a contradiction there. So there's a missing piece of information. And so for the government to have the power to dismiss the case and then take them into custody, you're missing something. And that means it falls into an expedited removal. That means it's a very limited situation that a separate statute applies to. So there is something that's being misrepresented there. But I don't know based right offhand what that is. But I will say that that's a misrepresentation because, it's the person claiming that they want to be in this country. And so it's their proceeding. So it's a special proceeding where the government would go in and dismiss it because it's their claim. And what you're failing to realize is that when we have people claim asylum under Biden, the failure to appear rate on those hearings is very, very high. They're claiming asylum to get the release and then go disperse into our country, where when you have those hearings and they have a 50-60% failure to appear rate, they get an order of removal. So they've had their opportunity for due process. And then when they get stopped and they have an order of removal from the country, like we had that example of the superintendent of a school, and initially everybody was just like you. Oh, he was a citizen. He just came to this country for a better life. And then we started finding out about all of these statutory violations, criminal law allegations, and they just get worse and worse over time, and how he had thwarted the rules to become a superintendent. And so, the rule, it's never what we first think it is, or it's never what is first reported. It never is with Trump.
What is the failure to appear rate for asylum seekers?
I think it's over 50%.
The data that I'm showing here says in fiscal year 2023, 99.5% of people whose asylum cases were decided by an immigration judge had appeared for their hearings. For those released from detention and monitored through programs like Alternatives to Detention, the appearance rate was 99%.
I'm very familiar with I'm very familiar with immigration bonds, which is what they post when they claim asylum, and the immigration bonds, the failure to appear rate on immigration bonds is at least 50%. Again, you can look at that, but that's not the facts. I'm talking about the companies that pay the federal government for the failure to appear.
Okay, but not everybody pays a bond, right? So does every immigration person, every person who's getting an asylum case, do they all have to pay bonds, or are there plenty of people who don't? So if you're only limiting yourself to the people who pay bonds,
question.
if you're only limiting yourself to the people who have to pay the bonds, then that's artificially restricting a larger portion.
Yeah, but based on what your statistics you're citing, then the people who opposed to surety bonds for immigration are like 8% of the people. That's not that. It's a lot. No, that's not true. So
track data, TRAC, Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse. I'm sure. Are you familiar with that? Or shows that 14% of immigrants released on bond during fiscal year 2015. It's 2015. Failed to appear on a subsequent court hearing. This is in contrast to the 23.4% overall FTA failure to appear rate for all released individuals that year. So a smaller percentage in that year at least. But you said under Biden, so I'm not sure. Let's see if I can add that failure to appear under Biden. Let's see if that makes things. If that makes anything else.
They just defy common sense. So you're saying they went and had a hearing and they were told to leave the country and they just left the hearing and didn't do anything? That doesn't make sense, right? And you should Google how far behind were they under Biden. How many years behind were they on asylum?
Well, they were behind. That's why they wanted to pass that law, but Trump said no. Somebody else said.
No, that's not the reason why they want to pass that law.
That's one of the things that was included in the law. So,
but also a bunch of other things.
Somebody else, I think it was the same person. I think it was Josh again, who said, "What about ICE showing up at schools and dealing with the children? Do you think that I should be?"
Okay, so I think that's been debunked. I don't think that's true, and I think that's a misrepresentation. I think a lot of what's going on is you have people looking at something and misrepresent it to try to turn the public against ICE, and I think that's what that is. That's an example of that. It's been around for a while, and it's been debunked.
Okay, let's see.
So go ahead and tell me I'm wrong.
According to this, the Department of Homeland Security has lifted a policy restricting immigration enforcement at sensitive locations, including schools.
That's where it came from. So they lifted it, but now it's happened. It's terrible. We got to turn against ICE because.
Well, I have my problems with ICE because of the other things like the Norfolk cruise ship workers and the other people who are being detained and deported who are not the worst of the worst. That's my issue with ICE, the fact that they're doing things that violate, what they said that they were going to do, what this administration has said.
One of the things that I have a real problem with that you've said today is we've got people that are doing the jobs and getting paid less that no one else will do, so we should allow them to do that. That was the same argument that the South made during slavery. Why would you ever make an argument for that? To defend?
No, I have repeatedly.
You argued that.
I haven't quite yet. I said that it happens. I didn't make a judgment call on it. I have said repeatedly on the show, and I'll say it again. I believe that we absolutely should go after employers who are paying people substandard wages. If there are employers out there who are paying people wages that are less than what the wages are, than the prevailing minimum wage, if they're paying people illegal wages, then absolutely you should go after the employers. We should absolutely be going after the employers. But that doesn't.
Why do you think they're hiring them?
Because nobody is going after the employers. Because we as a country have decided that we're going to go after the people who are here, the people doing the work, and not the people paying for the work.
I've heard this argument just recently about we shouldn't go after cartels where they're importing drugs. We should go after Facebook Marketplace for selling the stuff that enables. It's just ridiculous. So that goes into that category.
What does Facebook Marketplace have to do with the fact that employers are paying people substandard wages?
Okay, it's the same type of argument. It's illogical. So instead of just going after the people that shouldn't be working there, we're going to blame it on the employers. And so the same thing about instead of attacking people who are shoplifting and then selling the stuff on Facebook Marketplace, instead of going after the criminals, they want to go after Facebook and make it their problem instead of the people who are actually doing it. It's the same argument. It's the same type of analysis, the same analogy. I just disagree with it.
I mean, I think conservatives would support a supply side type of argument where it basically says if you don't build it, they won't come. I.e., if you don't make the jobs available for the people to work, and punish the employers who are paying them substandard wages, and as such they're going to pay the wages that they want to pay, that they have to pay, like they would have to pay anybody else.
Wait a minute. You listen to yourself. Carry your argument out. If you set up a system where they cannot hire those people have no choice but to go home. So be careful what you're arguing. I support that, but I also support they shouldn't be here. We shouldn't have people here illegally doing work, taking jobs away from.
Well, they're not taking jobs
citizens.
away from the people, from the citizens, because the people aren't. What would probably happen is they'll probably outsource the work and probably and pay them those
that's
same
not true.
wages of the other country.
They increase what they pay because they're not paying the illegal aliens a substandard rate. If they're going to increase their pay, then people who are here legally will do the job, and it'll get reported as income. It'll get reported as Social Security. They'll pay taxes.
There's a lot of people.
It actually helps.
There are a lot of people. I mean, no, there are a lot of people who do pay Social Security who don't get the benefit from it. So a lot of people using false Social Security numbers. But anyway, but you know, you're talking about they shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be here. The point of the matter is that many of these people, after they've crossed the border in a way that the administration feels that that is violation of the law, regardless of whether or not it's true or not.
Well, wait a minute. Coming here illegally is not a violation of the law.
Well, there are people who there's always the argument as to if it's always legal for somebody to claim asylum, and whether or not they actually get their asylum case approved is something else. Now, a lot of the people that are not here legally are people who like overstay their visas and stuff like that, or people who rely on their visas. My point is that
but if their
of those people that are here,
is denied, then they're here illegally.
But of those people that are here,
denied, then they're here
they're
illegally.
here 20, 30 years, and the only crime they've committed is crossing a border. What harm is that to you? What harm is that to me? Why go after those people, other than why? I mean, they're not going to get to vote. They're not getting in front of anybody who's going to be a citizen. They're not stealing anybody place in line who's trying to become a citizen in the quote right way. So they're not. And even
let me just turn that on. Let me turn it on your head. If I live in California, if I'm here illegal, I get a driver's license. If I get a driver's license, I'm automatically given a voter registration. So how can you say they're not voting? They get a vote by mail ballot.
The non-citizen driver's license are not to be used as voter IDs, and they specifically have wording on them that specifically says that, either because they're at a different angle or whatever. But the reason you want to have people who are here in violation of our border policies, you still want them to be able to have driver's licenses, is because you also want them to be able to buy insurance, so that if they get into a car accident, you're not stuck with the bill if there's an accident. There's reasons for that, but again,
let me shock you. Mm-hmm. Let me shock you for a moment. My oldest daughter is 26, and she is engaged to a young man, and they're going to get married next year. His family immigrated to the United States from Colombia when he was 10 years old. They moved to a city in Texas. He learned to speak English in the school, graduated. He went to college. He has a double degree or double major from the University of North Texas. And he and my daughter met. We think the world of him and his family. They're all here. They've all been naturalized citizens. I don't have one freaking problem with somebody coming to this country to be a naturalized citizen. I don't. We're fixing to have in-laws that don't speak English, and we're happy to have them in our family. And what you are ignoring, or what your supporters are ignoring, is those people are actually supporting Trump on these issues. Y'all are the ones that are off base. They support legal immigration. They don't support people coming here illegally and jumping in front of them.
But they're not jumping in front. That's the point. Nobody is jumping in front of anybody. Even if they come here and declare asylum, I've covered this.
Well, wait a minute. If you come here legally, you have to have a sponsor, and you don't have all these benefits that when you come here illegally, you suddenly get.
What benefits do you get?
So how can you say that's not jumping? Well, let's just see. If you went to New York, you were getting housing. Okay, but you get all these benefits. Housing.
If somebody's comes here and wants to claim asylum, then yes, there has to be a place where they have to get that. You have to put them somewhere. So yeah, I mean.
Well, isn't that interesting? I mean, I saw an article that said if you put them up in a private facility, then the hearing can be 4 or 5 years away. But if you put them up, if the government holds them, they have to have a hearing within a certain number of months. So that was one of the arguments why is New York putting them up in a hotel instead of just having the government hold? Because then it changes from months to have an asylum hearing to years.
Well, fix that in the law. That part of the law should be fixed so that there's no loopholes or whatever. Make it common across the laws. But I mean, you're worried about the people voting. According to this, what I found. Between 1999 and 2023, there were 77 instances of non-citizens voting in that entire span across the nation. So the likelihood of a person who is a non-citizen illegally voting and affecting our elections is slim to none. It's infinitesimal compared to the number of actual ballots that have been cast between 1999 and 2023, i.e. those 24 years that took place within those times. The total number of ballots cast, total number of elections done, only 77 instances have been found of non-citizens voting. So anyway, I probably have to get going at some point soon as well. But anyway, so again, thank you for coming on. This is probably the most we've disagreed in our 3 times having a conversation, and I think it was the most vociferous and vehement disagreement, I would say, to be kind. But anyway, look.
Well, and let me just end with this: the first time I voted for Trump, I held my breath. I really didn't like the guy. The second time, when he lost, I voted for him. I agree with a lot of what he said. This last time, and I speak for a lot of people, I would have crawled over broken glass to vote for him. And there's a lot of people that think the same way, and you should try to figure out why they think one way, and you and a lot of other people don't just disagree, but are 180 degrees different. There's a big space between just disagreeing about a policy, but the hate and he is so distrustful. He has to show me that he's right. I mean, that's stuff that's why we're where we are today in our politics.
I think anybody. I've made this argument before that anytime government takes an action, I've said this on the show many times, that the onus should be on government to prove that their actions are lawful, constitutional, etc. The onus should always be on government. I don't care who's president. I don't care who's governor. I don't care who's mayor.
So when Biden was elected president, how many of his candidates or his appointments were just done by acclamation? I mean, a bunch of them. And how many of those were done that way for Trump this time? None. They had to change the rules because politics has infected even the appointment process. We can't even agree on a low-level appointment that we're not going to do things that have never been done before. That's where we are. That's what I'm questioning. The civility is gone, and we have to figure out a way to get it back. Just having a disagreement. I love having civil debate, but this hasn't been civil. This has been a lot of name calling, which I don't like to do, and I apologize for that, because that's. As you've said, I usually try to come in and make a debate and try to get you to agree with me. Today's been, I've been on the road all day, but this is beyond the pale of anything I would normally participate in.
Do you believe that RFK Jr. is qualified for the position that he's holding?
I do.
How? Shouldn't the person being in charge of Department of Health be somebody who's worked in health policy, somebody who is educated?
Well, let me just ask it. Let me ask this a different way. Do you think someone who's running for president as a Democrat candidate for president, whose cousin or whatever, uncle, whoever he was, had two different relatives been assassinated as politicians, do you think that he should have been provided support or security before he got out of the race? Do you think civility would require that? I mean, we had a president of the United States that was so vindictive that said, I'm not even going to provide him with any type of security if he's going to run against me. That's where we are.
There are plenty of people who run for president who do not get the protection that RFK Jr. claimed that he should have had. If there were credible threats,
and you think that's what that was? You think that's all it was?
If it was shown that there were credible threats against RFK Jr. And that Biden still refused to get him civil service protection, then I would absolutely speak up and say that I would disagree with Biden, like I've said several times that I've disagreed with Biden. But I was not shown any examples of credible threats against RFK Jr., so why would I believe that? I need to be shown that such a thing existed. But that doesn't necessarily, that doesn't prove that, but his running for president, anybody who's a citizen in this country, who's 35 years of age and who is a natural born citizen of this country can run for president. That doesn't mean that those same people would be qualified to, run the Department of Defense. Sorry, Department of War, or to run the Department of Health, or to run the Department of Justice, or to run as the people. At least I might disagree with Pam Bondi a lot, and I do, but at least I could say I can know where Donald Trump hung his hat there. Oh, she was a former Attorney General of Florida, so if she's so that means that she has a background in the law. So therefore, it is a reasonable pick on the ground, at least on the grounds of this person has the appropriate education. Now, do I think she's doing a good job? Do I have problems with the things she said? Abso-freaking-lutely. But that doesn't mean that she's not qualified to hold the position. RFK Jr. is not qualified to hold the position. Not one bit.
Okay, I'm speaking way out of my ear on this one, but Biden had some guy that was appointed for some position that was going to the airport and stealing ladies' luggage, and we're going to talk about whether JFK Jr. is qualified for his position? Really? I mean, I don't do the tit for tat, but really? You have somebody that's going to the freaking airport in Washington stealing ladies' luggage, and he's a appointee of Biden, and with that didn't have any problems getting appointed. I mean, the Republicans said you get who you want, and so he got it. And you know what? That's who he appointed. And you're saying JFK Jr. is not qualified? Give me a break. He's probably, I mean, have you heard him speak on some of these issues? There are issues that have changed only because his nonprofit spoke about those issues. And you're saying he's not qualified? He's very qualified on these issues. And he's only concerned about the health of our children or the health of the country.
I'm sorry. I'll respectfully disagree with that. Sam Britton, the Biden administration nuclear official, who went ahead and stole the luggage. He didn't steal the luggage before he was appointed. He stole the luggage after he was appointed. But he was a nuclear engineer. So therefore, there is some place to hang his hat to say, okay, if he's in charge of if he's a, quote, as the New York Post says, a nuclear official, not quite sure what the overall things mean, but if he's a nuclear engineer and he's working within the nuclear power in the administration, then that's where he could hang his hat and say, this is why this person was appointed. Now, after the fact, he steals the luggage, and that's, ridiculous and stupid and crazy and whatever, that he did that, or that they did that, I'm sorry.
That's you think that's really a one-time thing and not an example of a issue that's been going on for a while?
I believe that, but again, the point was whether they're qualified. Now, if there was evidence that this person was doing this thing before he got
So
appointed,
you
then
think he's
absolutely.
okay?
But there has to be evidence
Okay.
that it's there. But the evidence that is there was that the person is a nuclear engineer. And
So
is working within
you at least concede after the fact. You concede that after the fact he's not qualified for his position.
Well, he should have been removed from the position after he did what he did. But
Well, that would mean he's no longer qualified for that position because
Right.
he's no longer trustworthy.
Okay,
He's got a
but
problem.
at
So that
the
means he's no longer
appointment
qualified.
stage,
What
at
has
the- at the
JFK
appointment-
Jr. done to
RFK?
show that he's not qualified?
I mean,
What has JFK Jr. done to show he's not qualified?
RFK Jr.
Other than you disagree with. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
RFK. I'm sorry. It is 10:30 at night. I
That's
have been
fine.
up. I have traveled across the state. I have been up since I don't know. I apologize, but what has he done other than take positions you disagree with policy-wise that has shown he's not qualified to be?
Because he's not
the
educated
position he's
as
in?
a healthcare professional.
Okay.
The person who's in charge of the Department of Health should be educated as a healthcare professional.
Would you at least concede that he has this is an area of law that this is an area that he has concentrated policy-wise for at least 20 years? Do you at least concede that?
Sure, I'll concede that, but I won't concede that he's bringing any sort of,
Well, that just
beneficial
means you
knowledge to
don't
it.
agree with him.
Right,
It
I
just
don't
means
agree
you
with
don't
him,
agree with
but I
it.
don't agree with him because he's, again, if he was in the law, then maybe he should be part of the Department of Justice dealing with healthcare issues as part of the Department of Justice. If it's a matter of law, it's not a matter of law, it's a matter of health policy, and people who are forming health policy should be educated on health issues and not spouting crazy theories.
I really
like he
think
does.
the problem. See, I really think the problem with RFK Jr. is the sense that of betrayal from the left, because he initially ran for president as a Democrat. He was run off because how dare he run against Biden before Biden was run off himself. And then he did the unforgivable. He teamed up with a Republican to try to do, in their opinion, whether you agree with it or not, in their opinion, what was best for the health of the country and for the children of the country. And what I'm hearing you say is you just disagree with what he's doing. But
I think he's been a
I don't
kook
think you
well
disagree
before he
that's
ran
what
for.
he's
I
trying
think
to
he's
do.
I think he's been a kook on healthcare issues, on health issues, since well before he ever ran for president. So this has nothing to do with him challenging Biden. People can challenge Biden all they want. One of the other.
No, he wasn't allowed to.
What I'm
He was
saying is
run
that
off.
my opinion of him has nothing to do with the fact that he challenged Joe Biden or even that he supported Donald Trump for president. If he felt that was the correct person to support, he is as an American citizen, he's free to support whoever it is he wants to support. And whatever. My problem is with the actual harm that's going to come with the policies of his running the Department of Health. He claims he wants to
So
help
getting
children.
rid of dyes,
but
getting rid of dyes in cereals is going to harm the country. Getting rid of dyes in cereals.
I didn't say anything about getting rid of dyes, but changing.
Well, wait a minute. You said his
changing-
policies are hurting our country.
But
So
that doesn't
getting
mean
rid
that.
of
That
dyes
doesn't
is
mean
gonna-
that. I didn't say all of his policies are hurting the country, but there are
Okay,
policies
so
that he's
there's
promoting.
one policy. There's one
There are
policy
plenty
that
of
we can
policies
agree with.
that he's pushed out. When he said that
Okay,
there's
no,
no
that's important.
safe vaccines. He said that there is not one
So-
safe vaccine, not one,
Is he-
and that's a total and
Well,
utter
wait a
complete
minute.
BS.
Wait a minute. How is that wrong? We have a fund set up. The federal government has a fund set up so any child who takes a vaccine and has a reaction to it that is debilitating, they have a fund that they can apply for. So we already have that in place currently for you to say, well, he's lying when he says no vaccine is safe. We have a fund set up for that very purpose. So you can't.
In the rare circumstance that somebody
really?
has an adverse reaction to a vaccine because of unforeseen things, then yes, they do have.
Isn't that
to
what
make
he said?
No,
Isn't
because
that what he
no,
said?
not at
Yeah.
all. Because
That's one
regardless of
interpretation. He's not-
MMR, the
he's not
measles, mumps,
advocating-
rubella vaccine
not
has
advocating to
proven
get rid of
himself
all
to be
vaccines.
effective. But by
is not
saying the things that he
advocating to
says,
get
he
rid of all
promotes
vaccines.
vaccine hesitancy, which is why we're seeing measles cases pop back up when we shouldn't be.
No.
Yes,
No. I think
vaccine hesitancy on the part of this administration, and specifically of RFK Jr., is making it so that people are going to be less likely to vaccinate their kids.
Did you have measles as a kid?
No, because I was vaccinated for measles. But people
I had measles as a kid.
Well, maybe
Measles
you're older
aren't
than me.
dangerous to kids. I'm 64.
Well, there you are. You are. Well, Paul McCartney
I'm
sang
a lot
about
older.
you, right?
It's
So there you go.
actually past my bedtime. It's way past my bedtime.
It's almost past my bedtime too. But anyway, so we did 30 minutes later, after we said we should stop talking, we've continued to talk. But anyway, thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate the discussion, even though this one was probably less civil than our other ones combined. So, but again, I do want to thank you for coming on, giving me your time, and I hope you have a good rest of your night, get some good sleep, and have a good night.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. I appreciate the conversation. I really apologize for the name calling. I don't like to do that, but sometimes when I feel like I'm someone wants me to get in the mud, I'll be happy to do it. So hopefully next time, if there is a next time, we'll go back to a civil debate.
All right. Well, have a good one, and I will talk to you later.
Bye.
All right. Bye. And there we go. Ken Good. Again, that was much longer than I anticipated it having. But there you go. 250 kilo. Turn this guy down. CR in the chat had basically said something about that this was a waste of a show. I highly disagree that this is a waste of a show. I think it's important to be able to show how to fight back against these people when they say the things that they say, simply because of the fact that, we need to be able to combat these people over and over and over again. And combat, when I say combat in the terms of, have these discussions, the battlefield of ideas and of debate or whatever. And, I should apologize to something, because of the fact that while the 13th Amendment to the Constitution does state that the ownership of people is unconstitutional, I do want to say that I think that I owned him pretty well, don't you think? Yes, Fred, RFK told the people to refuse the measles vaccines, and 90 people died. I think the caller should pay up for subjecting us to himself. Link above. I mean, hey, it is what it is. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Donald Trump's line.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. Yes, our Trucker John. It's good to see you, Trucker John. RFK Jr. is absolutely a quack, 100%. Again, I was a little bit shocked. I mean, frankly, if we go back and listen to the last two shows that I had Ken on, it went much better. It went less vitriol, less combativeness. But look, he wants to claim that I have TDS or whatever. I think that the amount that the right wants to tell us that we are deranged because we are against Donald Trump. I can make the same comment about the people who refuse to say that Donald Trump is wrong, who want to just justify anything he does because he's the one in power. He's the one that won. He's the one that did all that. I'm sorry, but, just because he's elected doesn't give him the right to do everything he wants to do, doesn't give him the authority or the power to do everything that he wants to do, or it shouldn't. And yeah, I'm going to continue to double, triple, quadruple down on, those specifically those people who are cruise ship workers, especially when the other day, because I've been sitting here quoting the 30 figure, because at first I was like, it's 20 or 18, and then I was like, oh, it's actually over 20 or 30 at this point. Okay, well, let's adjust the numbers. And then I go back to go check when I'm doing show prep for this show, and it turns out that it's over 100 now. Over 100 Filipino cruise ship workers detained, deported, and banned from returning to this country. For what? For no good reason. Yeah, and yeah, the administration has the authority to, implement its immigration policies, and its immigration policies are clearly going to be different than Biden's immigration policies, but that doesn't give him the authority to violate orders from the Supreme Court when the Supreme Court says that his actions are unconstitutional, and denying people the ability to file writs of habeas corpus are in fact examples of him being a lawless president. Petrazi, he didn't kept talking over you. He didn't listen at all. Well, that's the other point, though. The other point that I have when I've discussed things with the Gibson media folks of the world, when I discuss things with the people like Ken, when I discuss things with that other conservative that called in the other day, maybe I thought a little bit that maybe Ken might have sat here and said, hey, you make a good point as it pertains to those cruise ship workers. Maybe the Trump administration is going after more people than they said they would. Maybe I had a little bit of a thought in my head, well, maybe that he might be willing to admit that, even if he's not willing to admit overall that, that the administration is wrong. Maybe he would at least say, well, those are examples of wrongdoing, and maybe the administration should take a step back. Like, maybe he would be more like the Joe Rogans of the world, who for some reason thought that the Trump administration was going to go after like the gang members, the MS-13s, the whatever, and they now feel misled because he's going after whatever, despite the fact that we tried to tell them that he wasn't going to just go after them, that he was going to go after the low-hanging fruit, because the evidence was clear in this first term that he was going to go after the people who were low-hanging fruit and not, and not the hard, the worst of the worst, etc., etc., etc. So, I mean, that was there. But the reason that I debate conservatives is not just to help y'all see how to best deal with them and how to best counter the talking points that they might have when it comes to, they say this, and I'm okay, well, here's why that is wrong. But the other reason is because in the hopes that other people might be watching from the distance, that might be sitting here and going, hey, look, sorry, I had to take some medicine real quick. They might sit for self, hey, here's what this conservative is saying, but I'm going to listen to this other guy too. Oh, this guy's making some good counterpoints, so maybe I should not listen to what these conservatives are saying, or at least take these other points into consideration. So, and this is true whether I'm doing it on my podcast, this is true whether I'm doing it in online discussions like on Facebook or what have you. When I'm sitting here, it's never really to convince the person with whom I'm having a debate with. It's always so that someone like y'all can be like, oh, go look at this time of this conversation. Liberal Dan brought up a good point. Or let's, or somebody else is watching and be like, oh, I never thought of this counter to this argument that's being made the conservatives. Maybe I should listen to this other side and this is a good point. That's why that just happened. I just inadvertently left my live stream page, and whatever. So hopefully we're still, it's saying that I'm not joined anymore. Are y'all seeing? Oh, there we go. Now I'm back. Now I'm back on the screen. Fat fingering stuff. I actually went to like Hal Sparks's show or whatever and went a little bit. 250 kilo ohm. I got your low hanging fruit, pal. Nice. Anyway, hey Susie, do you want to go to Uranus with Jolie and Roxanne with me? I want to go to Uranus. Why are you not inviting me? I would love to go to Uranus, Jeff. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I was this close to hanging up on him too, Susie, when he was mockingly laughing at me. I was very close to hanging up on him because I felt that he was being very disingenuous and much different than he was on the other two shows that I had a guest with him on. So, but yeah, but I couldn't understand the point about the stealing of the luggage. Like, I mean, that had nothing to do with the fact that the person was a nuclear engineer and was appointed to a position that dealt with nuclear power. So yes, that makes total sense that might happen, as opposed to RFK Jr., who is not a healthcare expert, who is not an expert on health policy at all, and who is as the song says, a brain-wormed quack. So, anyway, I don't think I'm gonna open up the phone lines anymore. I think I've had enough. Even I would love to hear Big Hook and Big Hook mocking. That would be great. But I do have some stuff to take care of before I go today. What is it? Does Uranus have rings? I don't know. You'll have to ask my doctor. Haha, Dean Baker. LOL. Yeah, DB Golding. Just one more sentence from a while back, I guess. I prefer that one over the bagpipes version. Nice. But yeah, and I missed something. Somebody said something about how my chat was becoming a dating show. I definitely want to hear that. I definitely want to understand why that happened. Why this was becoming a dating show and who was hooking up, and I should at least get some of the credit if there's a love connection made, right? I should 2 and 2 be back at you. If you know, you know. Why do they always blame Biden? Because he makes a good person to go after, because he's the enemy within, I guess, right? As Trump refers to us, he's somebody. Basically, they're like, don't look at the person that we are saying has mental difficulties and are losing his mental faculties, or look at that person, honestly, who we are saying has lost his mental facilities or faculties or whatever, because we don't want you looking at Donald Trump, who has lost his mental faculties. I mean, he didn't even freaking know that he's president on January 6th, 2021. Yeah, Biden deranges that. Yeah, BDS, exactly. Of course, to say BDS, that's another thing altogether. Anyway, I'm really cranky for my immunizations. Hopefully, it'll be better tomorrow. I do need to go get my COVID and flu shots as well, especially because my wife can't, because she is now prohibited from taking a whole bunch because of all of her issues in the past, and now so we have to get vaccinated to protect her as well, because it's important, because she's immunocompromised and is at risk. So that's why we have to do it. And of course, if we had another outbreak of another virus, guess what? We're going to be screwed, because the conservatives are going to kill us all with their irresponsibility. Anyway. What did Jeff say? Oh, does Uranus have rings? Molly O got it both last week. Mazel tov, congratulations. Anyway, irredeemable, deplorable, exactly. I mean, there are people with autoimmune disorders who do get the vaccines, but my wife has basically been told that she has to keep clear of most, if not all, of vaccines at this point because of the Guillain-Barré that she had. So, anyway. Jolie, the mini golf, but pirates, enough said. That's funny. That I'm gonna, one of these days I'm gonna make it up to Uranus, Jeff, and I'll make sure to say hello when I'm in Uranus. Wait.
Oh my.
There we go. It's the perfect one. It's the perfect thing to have. Anyway. It would be cool to have a Woodstock event at Uranus. Might be. See, simple question. Why weren't there no Kings protests during the Biden administration? Because they wanted a king. That's why. They want a king. And the king they want is Donald Trump. And he's now a self-described king. Anyway, let's go ahead and call this show finito, over, etc. I appreciate everybody for hanging through that and for chilling out or whatever. I mean, I did warn everybody last show that this show was going to be a show where I'm debating a conservative, and yes, it took longer than I expected because, we came on at 8:15 and lasted till 10:40, 10:30, so that's 2 hours and 15 minutes, much longer than the hour that we were anticipating, but that happens. It happens, but again, I don't report me to the feds because, again, owning people is illegal, but I think I owned him completely in that conversation. But anyway, thank you, Fred, again, for the $10 super chat. I hope, appreciate everybody for doing so. Everybody supports the show in all the different ways that they can afford to do so. If you can't afford the super chats or Venmos or whatever, just make sure to just interact with as many videos as you can whenever you can. Share videos, especially the videos of the songs if you like them, because I'm really trying to push them out there. I think that could very well be what drags some more people in and gets them involved. But what also might happen to do that is if I add a third day. So I have not yet settled on when the third day is going to be. It may not even be till the beginning of the year because, again, I am less than 1 month away now from my right knee replacement. So I'll have to deal with all of that stuff after that happens. So maybe at the beginning of the new year is when we'll target a third day of Liberal Dan Radio Talk from the Left. That's right. But anyway, thank you, Aaron and Jolie, both for being the wonderful mods that you are. Wouldn't be where I am without y'all. Thank you, everybody else as well. All of these liberal Danimals, all of the people who have gifted memberships, bought memberships for themselves, etc. Appreciate you. I wouldn't be able to be where I am without y'all as well. So thank you very much for supporting me, supporting the show. I appreciate y'all very much. And actually, I'll just do it from this one. I hope everybody, all of y'all, have a great one. And unless something huge comes up before the end of the weekend, I will see you all back on Monday. There you go. Talk to you later. Peace.
Gather round, everyone, and I'll tell you a tale about an orange-faced buffoon who should be in a jail. When people say he's done something that goes beyond the pale, he will shake his head and give this answer without fail. A hoax, he says it's all a hoax. When at a press conference or with Milky Strokes, he says he tells no lies and that he never jokes. Confronting with the truth, he'll say it's all a hoax. A modern Don Quixote, he hates the windmills, claiming to protect the birds and whales he says they kill. But don't believe that story, it's really just a shill. He just did not want to see them wild golfing on Scottish hills. A hoax, he said it's all a hoax. When at a press conference or with Milky Strokes, changing a storm path with black marker strokes. Confronted with the truth, he'll say it's all a hoax. Casting mail-in ballots is something that he's done. Now he wants to ban them for each and every one. He claims it for integrity in each election, but he won't believe the results unless it's him that's won. A hoax, he says it's all a hoax. When at a press conference or with Milky Strokes, they'll fool you with distractions like real sugar in Cokes. Confronting with the truth, you'll say it's all a hoax. He promised to release all the Epstein files that caused all the MAGA base to react with smiles. But how long has he put it off? It sure has been a while, and now he's calling this a hoax, protecting pedophiles. A hoax, he says it's all a hoax. When at a press conference or with Milky Strokes, he'll keep on gaslighting up until he croaks. Confronted with the truth, he'll say it's all a hoax.
They wrote it in the laws, ink still bleeds. Treating women like soil, just planting seeds. She's gone, brain dead, not even awake. But the state's got a claim, gonna plant its stake. Say it's God's will, say it's life they protect. But they ain't the ones feeling pain or neglect. From Texas to Georgia, they set the trap. Rights roll back while they smile and clap. Gilead's here, this is true. Hey, MAGA fools, they'll come for you too. So I'm gonna see you later. I'm not gonna be a baby incubator. This ain't pro-life, it's control and shame. They don't care if she's gone, just playing a game. Keep her hooked to machines, cold and still, just a vessel to them, not a human with will. No consent, no voice, no chance to resist. Just laws in place, written with a clenched fist. Hospitals scared, judges playing God. Bodies ain't temples, just state-owned pods. Gilead's here, this is true. Hey, mega fools, they'll come for you too. So I'm gonna jet, see you later. I'm not gonna be a baby incubator. Bands in the dark, they don't care who it kills. Sacking courts while they strip out all of your wills. But we'll fight back, march loud, burn bright. Cause this ain't the end, it's the start of the fight. Gilead's here, ain't no grace. And those leopards are coming to eat your face. So I'm gonna jet, see you later. I'm not gonna be a baby incubator. Not gonna be a baby incubator. Not gonna be a baby incubator.
Obama and Bush's pictures got hidden, obscuring the past, history rewritten. Hung in a hallway where no tour can see, confirming his unending fragility. If Trump can't see it, you must not exist. That also includes the Epstein list. Object permanent, a milestone missed. If Trump can't see it, he must not exist. The testing was the line that he said. Hundreds of thousands needlessly dead. Now HHS is run by brainworm quack, hiding the truth behind his back. If Trump can't see it, it must not exist. That also includes the Epstein list. An administration run by narcissists. If Trump can't see it, it must not exist. Of documents stacked floor to the wall, top secret folders in a bathroom stall. Charges were pressed but the case was dropped. A corrupt judicial system he can co-opt. If Trump can't see it, it must not exist. That also includes the Epstein list. He'll swear it's fake news, a liberal twist. If Trump can't see it, it must not exist. Encampments downtown, tents lining the street. Invisible people that power won't need. Hide them away so the cameras can't find the proof of a system that's cold and unkind. Of chaotic secret and NDA sign. In a legal bribe, Michael Cohen fine. Trump got fined too over his gag order, but she didn't gag cause he was much shorter. It must not exist. That also includes the Epstein list. We can't let him win, we must resist. If Trump can't see it, it must not exist.
Trump piled debt, trillions tall. Promised Mexico would fund that wall. Praised dictators, said they're strong. Had Joe done it, they'd say he's wrong. Had Biden done it, MAGA would flip. Had Biden done it, if chose the name. Is patriotism when down?